Zoom meeting. Alert. Had to make left parent slash right parent and left the meeting.
Morning, Ruth.
Morning.
Morning,
How are
Neil.
you?
I'm fine. Well,
Yeah.
well done on your globe triumph.
So exciting.
Oh,
It was one of the 2 commissions that Vocalise have had. Oh.
hello.
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 Hi. Oh, there's Mark.
Marvellous. Hello, Mary.
Hello, Mary.
Hello.
Oh, hello, Mary.
Hello. Lovely. Oh, you don't seem to have got my picture, but there we are.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. Morning, Ivan.
Oh.
It's Ruth here.
Hello. Nice to see you.
Hello, Ivan.
I'm going out again to see whether I can get my
hello.
picture because
Hi, Ivan.
I'll come back in a minute.
Morning, everyone. It's Vidar joining by phone.
Oh, hello, Vida.
Hello, Vida.
Hi, Vida. Very lovely to hear your voice.
Yeah, likewise. Nice to hear you all. You're all
Oh,
keeping
well
well
done.
and everything going as well as
We
it
are.
can, I trust. Yeah, good.
Absolutely. Thank you. Hope you are. How are you?
Touching wood and
Very
all of that. Yeah,
wood. Well
fine.
done.
Thank you. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Joe here. Hello, Vida. Bless you.
Thanks very
Good
much,
to
Joe.
see
Thanks for your
you.
note the other day as well. That was great.
Okay.
Joe, you know, there is a problem. I can't write you because my mail is not delivered to you for some reasons. I don't know why.
It's quite all right, Ivan. Thank you for contacting Carolyn. And
Yeah.
you are safely here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the
Good.
invitation. And I've sent the membership fee for
Don't
my
worry.
PayPal.
Yes, I know. It's been sorted. Bless you. Thank you. Yeah, good.
What time is it in Russia now?
For 2 p.m.
2 p.m.
That's
not too bad. Yeah. Didn't
Joel, hello. How are you?
And it's 7 a.m. here in the United States. East Coast time. 7 a.m.
National.
Thank you, Joel, for making it early in the morning.
Of course.
Mark. Hi, Mark. It's Anne Hornsby. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Anne. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you.
Yeah, I guess it's a bit of a quiet time for you at the moment, Anne.
Yes, over 6 months of it. I'd quite like it to stop being
Yes.
quiet now.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, not easy time for you.
No. Oh, and we've got
Hello, Kat
Kat.
from Canada.
Yeah.
8 a.m. with her.
Hello.
Hello, Kat. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Very international today, aren't we?
Do you know how many people you're expecting, Joe?
Well, I've had RSVPs from perhaps sort of 15 or so, but I know that others will be arriving. I've sent out to everybody, but some have not got back. You know,
Yeah.
so we'll it'll be what it will be, I guess.
I think that was probably one of me forgetting to get back, I think, probably.
Hi, Julia.
Hi. Oh, Ruth, I was going to email Alison Thomas this week because we haven't heard anything.
Oh, good. Thank you. That'd be great. Yes. Yes, that's the next. That'll be the second paid gig in 6 months. Oh, how exciting. Good. I'll try not to spend it all at once.
It won't go very far, I don't think.
Well, you know, the other things that I've done for free will go even less far, so what the hey? No, that's going to be exciting. Looking forward to that.
What is it, Ruth?
East London Dance Project. Sorry, Ruth.
No, you carry on, Julia. You're the one organising it. Go, girl.
until we're called to order by Neil, our wonderful chair. What's happening?
A few young new choreographers and filmmakers, and they have 3 short films that they would like us to describe, and also mentor the young filmmakers in access and audio description, so it's something that they think about automatically when they initiate their work.
Very good.
So,
Good, good.
Do you need any help?
I'm trying to get rid of the M and get my name.
Hello, Mary. Mary Lambert.
Hello.
We can hear you.
It should be work. It should be working, but I don't know why it isn't.
Can anyone advise Mary?
Need to start
how
the
to
video,
get-
Mary, I think. So if you go to the your screen to the top right hand corner and click on 3 dots, it'll say start video.
Oh, right.
Just on your picture. Go to the top right hand corner on your picture.
I have it on the bottom
Oh,
left
do
of
you?
my corner.
Right.
Where there's a little icon of a video and it says underneath stop video, and if it's stopped it has a red line diagonally across it. If you click on that, your image should come up on screen in the tile along the top of the main screen.
I'm just asking a question. How can we help? So I'm going to go to that.
hi, Ellie. Is Ellie here?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
How amazing.
Hi, Ellie. It's Caroline. I'm really pleased. You got on. Fantastic.
I know. I'm so dim about this. This is the first time I've ever done this.
I'm afraid it's a life skill now, Ellie. It's much as we might all disapprove, it just is. It's something we have to do, I think, unfortunately.
Well, I'm astonished that you can hear me. It seems so unlikely.
Doesn't sound quite like you, actually, Ellie. Your voice is
no.
slightly deeper than normal. Have you got a cold? Or?
Who knows? Well, I don't think I've got a virus. I think. Well, I might have a cold virus. That's true. But no, I think I'm basically all right. Yes. Thank you very much. But it's lovely to hear you. Gosh, what?
And you too.
So weird. This is all so weird. Yeah, I can't. Anyway, so I'll shut up and somebody more interesting can say something.
Well, we've got Joe Myers, we've got Julia Grundy, we've got Ellie, we've got Vidar by phone. Hello Vidar. We've got Neil.
Hi, Carolyn. Lovely to hear you.
Lovely to hear you too. Gosh, ages since we spoke, isn't it?
It is. It is.
You got me now at last.
Keep going, Carolyn. We're telling everyone who's here.
Hi, we've got Joel Snyder,
yes.
Mary Plackett, Joy Watkins, Jane Brambley, another Jane. I'm sorry, I don't know your surname, Jane. Mark Smith.
Hi.
Hi, Kat Germain, Pat Hayes, Steph Bell, Jenny Elborn, Ivan Borsch. I can't see the rest of it. Borszewski, yes.
Because we just have difficult surnames in Russia, sorry.
Trish Hodson, Paula Succi, Elaine Lillian, Mary Lambert, Chris G. Allen. Sorry, Brid, I can't pronounce your surname. I won't offend you by trying. And then we're back to Ellie again. There we are.
What a tour de force, Carolyn. Thank you very much.
Well done.
Great. So there's a few more people still drifting in, I think. So we'll just give them a couple more minutes just to get into the room. And then we'll progress with the business of the AGM first.
Just writing everyone's names down. Hi, Tim. Tim's just connecting. Tim Calvert.
How many are there?
There are currently 26 participants.
Tim's just pushed us over the one screen limit.
Yeah.
I must say, it's all great audio description from Anne and Carolyn for me on the phone. That's very helpful.
Vidar, you're missing this screen subdivided into little grids with all our smiling faces.
Oh, well, I can imagine that picture, though. That's a very nice image. So
Absolutely.
But you get a little view into our homes as well, which is quite exciting.
Yes.
Some people have got bookcases and some have got sofas and.
Yes.
That was Ruth James just speaking, by the way.
That's right.
Thank you.
No, well, you're all creating a picture in words, you see.
Right.
Hide the washing. Put the cat out.
Jane,
people start to buy particular books to have on their shelves behind them for Zoom or these sorts of meetings.
I think so. Jane, whose surname I can't see, would you mind telling me your surname? Because I'm just writing down the attendees for the minutes.
Yes, sorry, it's Jane Devoy. I didn't have time to try and change it on the Zoom thing.
Sorry, could you spell that for me? I didn't hear it properly.
Devoy, D-E-V-O-Y.
Oh, that's what I thought you said. I just wasn't quite sure. Thank you.
You can change your name in your little tile at the box by clicking on the blue 3 dots, and it says rename. You can call yourself anything you want if you want for today.
Oh wow!
But beware, because it can stick. A lot of my colleagues in my temporary job fell foul of that. During lockdown, they let their children attend quizzes and all sorts of things, and they came up with some very strange names. And in the end, we had a polite little note round. Please change your names back and don't do it again. Because not so bad with internally, but of course we do external meetings as well. And it's going to be a bit weird.
Peppa Pig speaking to you.
Yes.
Yes, I think we'll do very well to get to the end of the session without my daughter turning up at some point. She's fascinated by the faces in the boxes. I've been on. This is my 3rd meeting of the day, and she's popped up in both of the other ones so far. So I'm sure these little insights into people's lives is really probably the only benefit of this system, I think, other than keeping us all connected. Let's get started. We have got the agenda of the AGM, which hopefully you all sent over the last few days, and we'll work our way through it. We'll start with welcome from myself. So welcome. Our apologies that we're not in some venue somewhere in the country as we normally would be, and I don't know about everybody's individual surroundings, but this is quite different from where we were 12 months ago, certainly in my back bedroom, lacking a little of the grandeur of the Reform Club, but never mind. We are well met however it is.
What's your background? Where are you?
This is not actually here. This is a fake background of the Arena Theatre. This is where I wish I was. And it's hiding up a litany of sins behind me that haven't been tidied up over 6 months of working in isolation. So yes, although I was able to go to the theatre last week, my theatre, not to see anything, but just to be in the building, and that was a real delight. So just some housekeeping. Obviously, this is an unusual environment, but obviously for our visually impaired participants, if you could introduce yourself when you start talking, that would be really useful, just so that there's 27 of us in the room now, and obviously we'll benefit if people know who's speaking. And this system does a great job for those of us who are sighted, but for those with visual impairments, it's still lacking in some areas. So if we can do that for our colleagues, that would be excellent. And yeah, hopefully we've got obviously this very bizarre scenario that we find ourselves in, but hopefully we've got some lively and engaging discussions to guide us through the next couple of hours. We'll take breaks at regular times, but nobody will be offended if your camera disappears for a short amount of time, or you disappear off to do whatever else, or it seems to be the way. Get a delivery. That seems to be the main reason people are leaving Zoom rooms. Sorry, I've got to go. The Amazon man's here. So please feel free to come and go as you see fit. And we've been unable to provide catering for you all, so I hope you all managed to cater for yourselves today. I've just had 2 slices of toast and a fairy cake, so that's I'm hoping that will see me through until at least mid-afternoon. And we will try and take some breaks in between sessions. So apologies. Joe, Carolyn, I think there was a list flying around between the 2 of you earlier on.
Yes.
Yes, I haven't got access to it. Have you got it?
Oh, sorry, I emailed it to
Okay,
Karen.
I've got it. It's okay. I've got it. I'll find it.
I had an added one this morning from Ros Chalmers, who is heavily embroiled in work, which is great.
Yes.
But she can't be with us, but she was hoping to.
Had a couple of those.
I have Barbara Crossley and Charles Wiltshire, Edward and Gillian Kendall, Jonathan Nash, who sends best wishes to everybody. Sorry, it's Mary Jeffries. But you have the full list, Carolyn.
I've got the list you sent to me.
And
Sorry, I
Ros.
just haven't
Yes,
got it in front
that's
of me.
okay. I think that's all that I received.
Lovely. Thank you. I've also had an email from Sonia Costello Branco today as well. I'm sending her apologies for the same reason. There's work happening,
That's good.
which is yes, such a positive thing to be hearing at the moment. Excuse me. So minutes from the 2019 AGM. Hopefully you've received those as well. I'll take clarification or amendments on page 1. And on page 2. Excellent. We'll take those as an accurate record then and approve those. Thank you very much. Matters arising. I suppose the only matter arising from the AGM minutes from last year was the describing diversity report, which I'm sure you've all seen and have had time to digest. And Matthew will be with us later on, hopefully, to talk a little bit more about that. So I think that one is there. So we will push on as well, unless anybody has anything else. No? Excellent. This is going very well so far. So election of officers. Joe Myers and Carolyn Smith are both standing for re-election to come to continue their work with us. And Jenny Elbun is a new candidate. Hi, Jenny. And hopefully you've all seen Jenny's
hello.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Jenny.
You've seen Jenny's biography that was sent round to everybody. We had a bit of a chat about how does this work on this format, and we decided as an executive the best way to do was to just take note of any abstentions or objections, and if there weren't any, then we could just progress in that way. So we'll take them one at a time. Any abstentions or objections for Joe? Any abstentions or objections for Carolyn? And any abstentions or objections for Jenny to join the executive committee?
Lots of head shaking going on.
Excellent news. Exactly what we expected would happen. Thank you all very much. So happy to confirm Joe and Carolyn to keep serving for another 2 years, and welcome on board, Jenny. You can. You're more than welcome, and we will. Yes, much applause.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Thanks.
Hand waving and all sorts of excitement going on in the boxes.
We call that head shaking or head nodding. Speaking of description.
Yeah. Well.
Nodding.
Yes. Well, there were no abstentions. Shaking of the head.
No shakings. I think I mentioned shaking, but I wondered, is that a British thing?
No, we were shaking. No, we were shaking our heads to show we were in agreement.
Have you not seen The Vicar of Dibley? No, yes.
By the way, in Bulgaria, those gestures mean the opposite. This means no.
Right.
As it does in
many
Turkey.
countries- in many countries, nay means yes.
Yeah.
Here's Roz just joining the party, I think. So that's good news. Excellent. Right. So that's great. And Jenny, you are welcome to join us later for your first executive meeting, as we always tack one on at the end of this day, as if we haven't done enough already.
I will get the details from you. I do have some
Absolutely.
plans a bit later, but hopefully I can squeeze it in.
We're just going to plow on as soon as we're finished here. I think we don't tend to take much time about it, and just have a quick round table on that. So we look forward to welcoming you later. Excellent, that's good. More business done. So on to our update reports for the various areas that we cover, and to start with myself. So I better find my notes, which I made the other day. Well, who'd have thought, when we were gathered together a year ago at the Reform Club, that we would have the year that was coming to us. I think when I spoke last year, I talked about a year of trying to take the advantages that we had in our part of the sector and boost them as much as we possibly could through use of new technology and change in a way that we approach different organizations, and who was to know that new technology would become so important in our lives just 6 short months later. There's no point trying to avoid the cliches of talking about unprecedented times, but that is where we find ourselves, and I think what's been most stark to me over the last 12 months is how reliant we all were as an industry, and not just in terms of audio describers and access professionals, but the industry as a whole, how much we took for granted in terms of our access to an audience and our ability to be live in a room with other humans. And it certainly has been a challenge, but one that I think, while the industry has taken a huge hit, and thousands of people have found themselves out of work, without an income, without any support from government, and it has been a really troubling time. The innovation and the creativity that has been demonstrated by the sector has been a small ray of sunshine in the time. So we recognise absolutely that for professionals in this area, it has been a huge impact and a really significant one. And what's really heartbreaking is to hear stories, and I'm hearing them every day, about people who are leaving the industry and going and finding work elsewhere. And let's hope that in the not too distant future, we're able to encourage a lot of those people back, and we're able to support a lot of those people back into the industry. It's no surprise to any of us, I suppose, inside access, that the return for us is also going to be a huge challenge. Venues are always very cautious with their finances. All arts professionals tend to be, all production companies tend to be, and we know that irrespective of what legislation may be out there, and what a moral requirement would be from a venue, that often it is access which takes often the first hit when savings are being made. A couple of things that we've done, which is worth updating everyone over the year. We had an extended conversation at one of the executive meetings about us moving towards advocacy and positioning ourselves as an advocacy organisation, as well as a sector support organisation, and that was certainly something that we all felt was important, and we've started that work. and we know there is going to be a lot more of that ahead for us over the next 12 months. Certainly with infections increasing in the way that they are, I think that November date that we were all waiting for is probably wishful thinking now. Apologies to my non-UK colleagues in the room who have other timetables, but in the UK we were hopeful that the government may make a decision at the beginning of November about return of audiences, and that looks like it's going to be postponed now. So we don't know when we'll be able to get back, but again, some green shoots are showing. As we say, a couple of apologies today for people who are working, and work is starting to drift back in. And I think there was a change. I certainly noticed it around the early, late part of August and the early part of September, where I think there was an attitude change from the industry of, we're not going to wait anymore for you to tell us when we can start again. We're going to reinvent what we do to make it work. And while that isn't possible for every venue, my venue is going to be closed until at least February. Those venues that are able are starting to bring things forward. Some other things that we've been working on, we've been hosting a monthly-ish room like this, and many of you have been in those rooms for discussions and chats and colleague support and just talking to another human in some cases. And I think we've dealt with some big questions, but also some quite small ones as well. And in a lot of ways, it's just been nice to see people and to connect with colleagues. But through that, we have started to look at how we can support venues in terms of providing resources that will allow audio describers to come back in quicker, more efficiently, more effectively, and we'll continue that work. The kind of headline of that is that what we've looked at is, how can we make it as easy as possible for a venue to say yes to audio description? And one of the big things that we I think at the last time we met, we talked about was us being able to provide things like risk assessments in a sort of generic way, so that I'm a venue manager. Every bit of activity that I want to do in my building at the moment requires a 28-page risk assessment. So if I've then got to bring an audio describer in and I've got to do that piece of work again, if an audio describer approaches me and says, and here's the risk assessment, those kind of things are going to make a real difference to things getting back in and getting back in line. When we get to our discussion sessions later on today, we're going to talk about what's happened over the last 6 months and also where we go from here. So I'm not going to spend too long on it now, but I think, you know, we've seen a real, as I say, innovation and creativity among the sector in terms of embracing the technology. And I know that colleagues who've been working with venues that have done major online projects have had some involvement with those new technologies, and that's really cheering to see. It was also very cheering to see when there was the sort of mass move in April and May of work being made available online by the National Theatre, by Andrew Lloyd Webber, by then every other theatre, I think, in the world who decided to follow on behind. The access was included on some of those shows. I'm sure we would all agree they could have done more. But on the ones that they did, certainly uptake was strong. Delivery was mixed, I think, in terms of the standard of delivery across various sectors and various providers. But at least it wasn't ignored entirely, which could certainly have been the case at that point. And I think one of the things it's certainly done, and we've looked at it at the Arena, is that there has been a digital education of a proportion of our audience who were not familiar with using online, and now are becoming quite adept at it. In fact, I'm getting more requests from audience members who I would have thought had probably never seen a laptop computer about when we'll be offering things online than I am from people who I know are on computers all day, every day. So that's really cheering. A couple of other projects that are continuing. We are still working on a website rebuild, because we know that the Audio Description Association website is creaky at best, and is likely to fall foul of some internet protocols in the not too distant future, which will make it obsolete. So we are working on that as we go forward, and we're also, as I say, looking at producing sort of documents in partnership with some others who are working in the same sector to try and improve these things. My notebook has flipped a page and I can't find my notes again now. I think that was about where I got to. Oh yes, of course, the advocacy as well. So in terms of the advocacy, I hope you've seen we made a press release, I think around April time, and then we followed up with an open letter a couple of months later, just reminding venues and producers and others of the importance of access, and reminding them of their responsibilities towards providing access for audiences. And we'll continue to do that work as we go through the reopening phase. And I suspect, while we know, I think the last I saw it was about 78% of Panto season that has gone now. While we know that Christmas is going to be a restart for some, I suspect spring 2021 is going to be the major restart for venues, and we will make sure that we are vocal during those times to make sure that people remember their responsibilities, but also recognising the advantage to providing access, and particularly in a world where we may be looking at blended audiences in terms of being in the building and being out of the building at the same time, and the impact that will have. So I think that's me. Yes. So yeah, a challenging year ahead. But I suppose, at least as opposed to this time last year, we know it's a challenging year ahead, as opposed to being caught by surprise in a few months' time. But we remain here for all of you, and any support, help, and assistance or advocacy that we can give. We're only ever an email away. So that's my. I hope that was leaning towards optimism. My first set of notes I wrote, and I went, well, that's too bleak. We're going to have to put some rays of sunshine somewhere in this. But then also, just to finish, just a thank you to you all for staying in touch and for providing such great work when it's been called on. And again, it's nice to see work starting to come in for some of you, and I hope there is work for all of you in the not too distant future. So next on the agenda is our financial update. Joy, I've seen you somewhere on my grid of faces. There you are. Hello.
Yeah, I'm here.
Over to you.
Okay, reserves to the end of March 2020 were 3,734. That's significantly down on the previous year, where we were at 8,600. But that is driven by a couple of things, really. Clearly, we spent a fair amount on the Reform Club event last year, which was understandable and very worthwhile. We had to pay a very, very late invoice last year where we'd received the income in a previous year. So that was a hit to the reserves position. And also, we probably didn't kind of quite have the drive on membership that we've had over the past few months. So that explains why the reserves were significantly lower at the end of March. But I'm pleased to say that given the work that Joe's done recently on the real kind of drive for membership and getting those membership reminders out, reserves are starting to creep up again, and we are now at 4,543. So whilst we are still down on the previous year, we are kind of still doing okay, and fingers crossed we'll keep, increasing the membership. Clearly this year is going to be tricky because we're not really going to have any significant income apart from membership, but conversely we're also not going to have any significant expenditure. So I think the overall message is, we're still doing okay. It would be nice to have a little bit more, but we don't really have anything to worry about at the moment, and we remain kind of financially stable. So that's all I want to say. Any questions?
Yeah. Any questions from anybody? and say I would, yes, the Reform Club event last year, obviously, did take a significant amount of financial input, but absolutely is for our profile and a celebration of the work, absolutely worthwhile. And happy to report that today's meeting should come in at a combined cost of £14 for the Zoom license. So that's a nice little switch for this year. And we've all saved on train fare, and we've helped the environment. And what a wonderful bunch of people we are. So that's really lovely. Yes, as Joy said, the push on change and membership is next, so not take too much of Joe's limelight, but the change in the way we're collecting memberships has led to an increase there, and yes, absolutely, foreseeing a very low financial outputs for the next year. As a relatively small organisation, those reserves stand us in good stead to continue our work, and obviously a testament to the volunteer hours that are put in by so many people to keep the organisation moving along, and buoyant. And thank you all for your membership monies, because those are much appreciated as well. And so that's the next agenda item, Joe. So I will throw to you,
Neil.
Thanks very.
Sorry, just on Joel.
Sure, thank you. I'm just curious if many membership organizations actually use conferences as a significant means of earned income, and I just don't know if ADA has ever approached the idea. Obviously, this would be this is a post-COVID possibility, I would imagine, but I don't know if ADA has ever thought about that. I can imagine a conference on audio description sponsored by ADA in the UK could certainly draw people from around the world. And actually, it's not even just post-COVID, because I've been attending a number of conferences and presenting just in the last couple of months and over the next couple of months. Is that a possibility for earned income?
Yeah, there was a major conference in, someone's going to tell me that I've got the date wrong. I'm going to say 2016, and someone's going to tell me it was like 5 years before that.
No, it was 16.
Was it? Oh, well done, mate. There was a major conference, yeah, that we sponsored in 2016, and that was my introduction to the ADA. So yeah, that one happened in Birmingham. So we probably are due another one. And yeah, absolutely, I think you're right. There is certainly financial opportunity there, among others. Joe, membership.
Thank you, Neil, and thank you everybody for your continued support during this horrible year. Yes, I've tidied up the spreadsheet, so everything is up to date. We currently have about 103 individual members and about 15 or so corporate members. The individuals were contacted in May just to explain that we were bringing all payments in line with the financial year, so that they will run from April 21 to the following April. So some of you have paid pro rata, possibly a tenner for the year, or £15. So thank you for that. It just keeps everybody together. And I've had a mixture of responses for obvious reasons, but thanks for that. I held out on contacting theatres for obvious reasons. I didn't want to badger them, but I did remind people recently, and I've had a trickle of interest and money coming back in from theatres. So we just hope for better times, really. So if you aren't a member and would like to be, the individual rate remains at £20 a year, £10 for visually impaired members and £50 for corporate members. There are many benefits. Obviously, you have your directory on the website. You have discounts for any personal development sessions, and really keeping up to date with what is happening. But thank you very much. I think that's it. And I just want to, at this point, say a huge thank you to Janine Graham, who I've been in close contact with. She's been running the website and has kept everybody's information sort of running, which hasn't been easy. And she's done a terrific job. So I just want to sort of note again big thank you to her, because I know she's passing on her role in due course. Okay, thanks.
Yes, absolutely, and I'm very happy to second that. Thanks, because yes, Janine has kept. She's been trying to pass on that role, I think, for well over a year now, but she's very happily kept things just ticking along while we make those arrangements. So yeah, absolutely second that. Thanks. Yes, and then just on that theatre issue as well. Yes, we did have a conversation about one of the problems being there's nobody in the theatres, so you can email them as much as you like. But there's nobody there, but also us not wanting to sort of put additional financial pressure on onto venues who are struggling at this time, and obviously being very sympathetic to the situation in so many places at the moment, and look forward to coming out the other side, which we absolutely will do. I'm getting more optimistic as this hour goes on. Right, next on the list is training. Mary, I will come your way.
Well, hello everyone. I hope you don't mind if I read this, because I find it easier. Last September's report signalled the need for a rethink of ADA's training strategy, especially in relation to our accredited training course for stage describers, which has been running for 2 decades. The effects of the pandemic mean the rethink is likely to be far more radical than we realised 12 months ago. The pandemic has added thick layers of uncertainty to the situation. The future of live theatre, of access funding, and the demand for audio description and for training are unknown quantities. Even assuming the market for training still exists, the feasibility of delivering and assessing our traditional course is threatened while COVID-19 security precautions are in place. The course aims to replicate the process of preparing and delivering a live description, and deliberately uses it as a group learning strategy. Not impossible to teach remotely and assess using video, but this approach gives no indication of how competent and comfortable the learner will be in a live situation. There have been, fortunately, rare cases of learners who performed well in the classroom but crumpled in the box. Lockdown has seen an accelerated trend towards recorded audio description of theatre productions, as well as live description delivered remotely. To what extent this will continue is again uncertain, but it calls into question the current content of the course. Clearly, any form of restructuring will need to allow for the new techniques and technology involved. The fundamental issue, however, is not pandemic related. It concerns accreditation, which is what ADA uniquely offers. As the course's quality reviewer said when we last met, accreditation costs. And the cost to ADA of keeping the course running in terms of the annual fee charged by our provider, which is the Skills and Education Group based in Nottingham, is now more than we could hope to recoup from course fees each year, even if future take-up was not so uncertain. There are alternative approaches, of course, regarding both cost and training delivery, and I will be exploring these in the forthcoming report I'm preparing for the Executive Committee. So that's all I want to say now, and I'm at the other end of an email if anyone would like to send me their comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, and yes, to sort of echo that, a really challenging year and a challenging environment in terms of accreditation of all sorts of things. You know, we can see the challenges that are facing education providers at all levels, and that remains the case. We've had several fairly wide ranging and quite broad conversations at an executive level about the future of this, and as Mary says, those conversations are by no means complete yet, and there are a lot of decisions to be made and plans to be put forward, so that we hope that what we can remain with the Audio Description Association is a level of authority by us lending our name to audio describers as a whatever that accreditation might look like. And while that may not sit alongside the skills framework, we hope that as an organisation 20 years standing, we can still maintain that level of authority, which comes as a symbol of quality for producers, and both in stage and film and television, and museums and all the other places that audio description is so useful. That an accreditation from the Audio Description Association, however that achieved, comes as a mark of equality. So we carry on the work, and we keep looking at solutions and different options, and hopefully over the next 12 months we'll be able to announce a new way of working that absolutely, as Mary has highlighted there, may look radically different from what's happened in the past. Thank you, Mary. Next up is website, PR, advertising. Joel, sorry, Joel, go on.
No, sorry, and sorry to horn in so
No,
much.
you're more than welcome.
But this is a great meeting, and it inspires some ideas and perhaps ways we can collaborate. With respect to training, my own company, Audio Description Associates, is on contract with the American Council of the Blind to run its audio description project, which is a group that I founded 11 years ago and still direct. We have many different initiatives, one of which is our Audio Description Institute, which we've done twice a year, a very intensive training of 3 to 4 days, full days, and we've done 18 of them now. We canceled the one in July due to COVID, but we do generally one in July, one in February, and we plan to continue now with an online version for however long we need to, or maybe even keep that going once we're able to come back face to face. I wanted to mention that certainly, but moreover, about a year and a half ago, we began working with other blindness support organizations, the National Federation of the Blind, the American Foundation for the Blind, several others. Although ACB, I think, is in the lead, working with the Academy for Certification of Vision Rehabilitation and Education Professionals. That's a mouthful, ACVREP. If you can remember that acronym, that checking them out on their website would be worthwhile, ACVREP. It is an entity that professionally certifies individuals working in visual support fields, O&M, for instance, other kinds of professions. And they have taken on with us this notion of developing a certification effort for audio describers first. Second would be audio description consumer consultants, people who are blind or have low vision, consumers of description, who could be certified as consultants to folks developing museum tours, to folks developing scripts for media, to folks developing description in live theater. We may very well go beyond that into other certain areas, but we also will be having endorsements. Then once you're certified as a describer, endorsements in performing arts, media, museums, etc. We're about a year and a half into it, and ACVREP is meticulous in their procedure because they want to be absolutely certain that once this is established, it is legally defensible and an official way of establishing credibility and integrity for individual describers. The United States government is very interested in this. The government hires all manner of sign language interpreters, captioners, describers, and they want to know, well, how do we know you're a good describer? I see your CV here, but if there was a certification effort, so that is in part the impetus. I can imagine a way in which we would, that effort would collaborate with ADA, with other associations of describers around the world, because it needn't be focused only on the United States. So just an idea, an update for you on that process in case you weren't aware of it, and an idea for potential future collaboration, I think.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joel. Yeah, that's really interesting. transatlantic collaboration always sounds like a good idea. So yeah, we'll stay in touch, absolutely. And yeah, let's talk further. Thank you so much. No, absolutely. Right, I've moved some things around now because I was writing down what you were saying. Right, Tim, to you.
Hello.
For all of your various bits that you look after for us.
Yeah, I'm having a few technical issues. I've just lost the power on the laptop, so I've had to hook it up on the smartphone. So in relation to websites, PR, communications, I think website's a bit of a handover situation because I've been doing all I can and assisting Janine. Obviously, Janine's hoping to move on by the end of the year. So hopefully trying to find someone to help me with that will be good. And it's just updating information, deleting things. Obviously, we're working together to have a handover at some point. So we have a new website. So that's obviously on the agenda at the moment. In relation to PR and communications, I think it's keeping the awareness at the forefront all the time. If there's any events that are going on, if there's anything that is audio described, it's communicating with Mary for the important work that she does with Notepad. I've got good relations with the talking newspapers, with RNIB Connect and RNIB Radio. I've been producing quite a lot of features since sort of COVID, anything that is streamed, any live events. I went to the Greenwich and Docklands International Festival where there was audio description, and I covered that. We've been doing quite a lot online with the ADA Zoom support discussion group, and the communication and trying to spread the word about that and get as many people involved as possible. It's like almost trying to keep the lines of communication open. So if anyone hears about anything, or if anyone has any ideas about what we could possibly do, you know, to raise awareness, but then always to get in touch and let us know about it. But it's trying to keep everyone connected as a bit of a community, really, especially through this difficult time. If anyone's got any questions, I'm quite happy to email or quite happy to answer them now. And it goes
Go ahead,
quiet.
Ivan. Ivan's got a hand up.
Tim, well, I can help to promote the Audio Description Association in the Eastern Europe, because now I'm in charge for PR in the Eurasian Subtitles League, and this Subtitles League don't pay attention to its name because it unites specialists in the field of accessibility. But it's called subtitles because it's the only word allowed by the Russian legislation for such things. So we have websites, we have social media pages, and we have different events. So and they know that I'm a member of ADA. So they will be glad to promote any material from the ADA. So anything you want to share, it will be shared in the Eastern Europe and Asia. So welcome, and I've got some good contacts with Hong Kong Audio Description Association. So,
okay, well, I'm quite happy to connect with you on all of that.
Okay. I'll write my email on the chat. So
yeah,
that's great.
Ditto here. The Audio Description Project website is probably our most visible initiative, acb.org/ADP. We'd be very happy to share any information that you have about a flyer or whatever it is about ADA.
Excellent.
Great, thank you. Yes, thank you, Tim. And yeah, the work continues. And big thank you to Tim for his work on getting press releases and open letters and et cetera, out there as the pandemic has gone on. And I'm sure we'll be calling on him again when there are other messages that we need to get out there. But yes, thank you to colleagues both here and elsewhere in the world who can help amplify the message. As an organisation, we absolutely live or die on our people spreading the word about what we do and telling colleagues and friends and organisations about the work that we do. So we rely on all of you to be part of that. And again, thank you for your efforts. Yes, just a reminder that the chat box is open and is there if you've got things that are useful. I absolutely should have said this at the beginning and I forgot to, so my apologies. I am recording the meeting. If anybody, I think unlike the sessions that we've done previous to this, that will just be for our records rather than anything else to assist Carolyn with minutes and other bits and pieces. But if anybody has any objection, please let me know. I should have absolutely have said that at the top. It was the first of my notes, which is why I ignored it. Also, just Mary, were you going to?
I was just going to ask, is there any chance you'll be doing any pantomimes this year at all? Is anybody doing any pantomimes?
Anne's got a hand up. Anne's landed a panto. Go on, Anne.
With panto. Well, it's a sort of a panto. It's called Panto in a Pickle, and it's an hour-long show which is presented at Norwich by the person who is normally the dame in the panto and the guy who's normally the comic in the panto. And I think it's just going to be a two-hander, and it's the premise is that all the pantomimes get mixed up. So it's Aladdin who falls into an enchanted sleep. It's Snow White who meets Cinderella. It's that kind of idea. How much staging they'll have, I don't know. I'm sure the dame will use it as an opportunity to put on all of her frocks. So I think there'll be quite a bit of costume, but it's not a full panto. But on the same day, we're also doing, I think it's called a circus carol, and that is a version of a Christmas carol, again only about an hour. That's going to have acrobatics and so on. So that's hopeful. That's the 19th of December, 2 shows in a day in Norwich. And it isn't a pantomime, it's a family show, the Gruffalo at the Lowry in Manchester. Again, about an hour show, lovely one for little children, but it's not a pantomime. Oh no, it isn't. None of my 16 or 18 or however many usual pantomimes at the moment are due to go ahead.
Thank you.
Steph, you want
Can
to?
I?
It looks like you're still on mute.
Right, here we go.
There we go, Steph.
Nottingham appear to be doing a panto this year. Judging by their brand new website, which is wonderful. And they're also audio describing and captioning everything in sight.
Oh, cool.
So they really have put access at the forefront of their new website. So fingers crossed, they're doing quite a lot on Zoom over the next months, captioning and audio description via Zoom. And then they're looking at doing a bit of a mixed bag. So there is hope out there.
Is that the Playhouse, Steph?
Yes, the Playhouse. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a really good conversation with Adam at the Playhouse about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Nottingham Playhouse.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. They have put it at the core. I think there's a couple of things going on out there from what I can see from a venues point of view. There's a lot of venues that are taking the show that would normally be in the studio at Christmas and moving it into the main house and looking to do the same sort of numbers that they would do in the studio, but do it in the main house. I know that's what's happening at Derby. A few others similar to as Anne has described, where the kind of the core cast or the regular returning dames and comic leads from pantos are doing a reduced version. I know they're doing that at Lichfield, and I think there was one somewhere in the southwest I'd seen we're doing similar. So those shows are coming through, and then also online. I know increasingly announcements are being made about work online for the Christmas period. I know we're keeping our powder dry at the moment. We think we're going to have a show out of the arena online at Christmas time, but it's a couple of weeks too early to say for definite, and we don't want to announce it and then have to backtrack on it. So I know we're not alone in that. Mark, your hand is raised.
Yeah, thank you. I was absolutely thrilled to hear Anne talking about coming to Norwich, because I work for the local association for the blind. It was interesting because I didn't know you were coming, Anne. I'd seen the adverts for the Panto in the Pickle, but strangely enough, the theatre hadn't been in touch with us to tell us it was going to be audio described. So
they have only just confirmed, Mark. A newsletter on its way later today, but yes, they have only just confirmed, which is convincing because it's in time for this meeting. But I think one of the problems that we've talked about in beta Zoom sessions before is that the access staff are being made, they've been on furlough, and many of them are being made redundant. So
yes,
a lot of the links with the audiences will have gone, and so that is something that is going to affect a lot of us.
Yeah. So will you be physically coming to Norwich, or are you doing it virtually, or how does it work?
If I am allowed out of Bolton, I will be there, Mark, definitely.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, very exciting.
We'll have the red
Excellent
carpet
news.
ready for you, Anne.
Yes, absolutely. As Anne has said, this is one of the real tragedies of this, I think, is that a lot of venues are going to look at the financial viability of roles like access officers and actually slightly broader, all those lovely things that theatres do other than put on theatre are going to be at severe risk for the next couple of years. I think education, outreach, access, inclusion, all those great things that we rely on. And I think while the access may not disappear from stages, as Anne's just alluded to, the support mechanism within the organisations may well go. And so I think it's going to put additional pressure on audio describers to pick up some of that those things as well. Right, so I'm aware of time's running away from us. There's just a couple of things that have come through the chat box. One, that people might not know how to use the chat box. So if you're not familiar with that bit of this software, there's a little button on the bottom of your screen that should say chat, and it opens up a little box to the right of your screen. I'm a Mac user. If you've got Zoom open full screen on Mac, the chat box won't appear. Took me half an hour to work that out one day. So just bear that in mind. But what we'll also do is I'll take a save of the chat box at the end of the meeting as well, and we can add that to the minutes so that people have got a record. Particularly people's emails are really useful when they fire in through there. The other thing, just while we're on any other business, two things actually that I just need to get done while we're in this portion of the meeting, and then hopefully we can continue the discussions that we're just starting to appear when we return. Joe and Carolyn have had a request through the inbox for a Black or Asian audio describer for a project. So either within or without of the membership, if anybody has contact and can put us in touch with somebody, that would be fantastic, so we can help a production out there.
Sorry to interrupt, Neil. It's actually a Black Indigenous person of colour.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Based in the UK,
email, so.
based
Okay,
in the
excellent.
UK to describe a short artist film. So I can put that up on the chat. I can put the email address.
Thank you. Yes, please. That would be great. Thank you very much. Yes, anyone can help with that. The other thing that I've just realised that is that we didn't obviously touch on in training is our PDS sessions for audio describers that we run periodically throughout the year. Those of you will know that our colleague Emily, who's in the room, was looking after that for us. Emily had to make a decision to step down from the executive during the year due to other commitments, and so one of the reasons we brought Jenny on board is to continue Emily's work. Obviously, we haven't been able to run a PDS in the way that we normally would, I suppose, with a sort of come to somewhere nice, sit in a nice place, talk about some nice things, learn some skills, have a nice lunch and go away again. But we hope we had got a really fantastic session planned for Milton Keynes around the point that all of this started. I think it was one of the last things that was cancelled quite late on, but we hope that we can remount that at some point. It would be really nice if we could do those in the real world rather than via these digital boxes. So Jenny's coming on board, and we'll be having conversations about that over the next few months, and more to come on that front, I suppose. So just aware that we are overrunning. I don't know about anybody else. I could do with a brew. Is there any other business while we're in this stage, bearing in mind that our 2 discussion sessions this afternoon are about what's happened to us all over the last 6 months and what might happen over the next 6 months? So any other business to sit within the AGM activity? No? Excellent. In which case I'll call the annual general meeting to a close, and thank you for your attendance on that. We've got, as I say, we've got 2 discussion sessions coming up. Next one, a bit of a tour around the country via various colleagues to find out what's going on in various bits of the UK and beyond. And then a session later on about what the future might hold for us. So those are the 2 sessions. The next session was due to start 5 minutes ago, but I'm going to take chair's prerogative and call a 10-minute break so we can all go and get a brew. So I make it 1:05. If we start that session at 1:15, and we'll see how we're doing for time when 2 o'clock comes around and how the discussion's going. So we'll see you all back here in 10 minutes. I'll leave the room open so you can stay, chat or not chat, or just turn your cameras off and ignore each other. But we'll be back at 1:15 for that session. Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Neil.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Neil.
Neil.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you, Neil.
Hi, Mary. How are you?
Oh, hello, Julia. Oh, nice to see you. I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Sadly, I'm gonna have to go now because I've got to go and babysit in Lincolnshire for grandchildren.
Oh, Matilda.
Yes, Matilda. Yes. So, I'm just typing it up, but yeah, it's really it's a real shame.
Yeah. Well. Yes. Do you remember, Julia?
Yes.
You said you might do something on writing introductions.
Oh gosh, did I?
No, it's not urgent. It's not in any way urgent. I just wanted to make sure it was still on your radar.
Well, it had dropped off, but I will certainly do it. Yes. Now,
thank you.
Now. Yes.
That would be excellent. Thank you.
Hello, Julia.
Yes, hi.
Can you hear? I'm just saying hello and goodbye because you're going off. So it's very nice to hear you, and indeed to see you.
Yes.
But
I'm afraid that you're heading to Matilda as we're going to get in the next few months.
Oh, I'm still hopeful.
We're not. Oh, Mary, it cannot be, can it? Really, realistically, it can't be. I don't think.
We can keep. Do you know I've kept everything in my diary, written in my diary, just in case, you know.
Well, I've kept everything there, and I haven't even pasted over it because I can see the sort of catalogue of destruction which has been going in the whole of my plans over the last year. So it's a record of what didn't happen, really, which is very sad. But I'm going to have to disappear at 2:00. But if you're going now, I just wanted to say hello and goodbye.
Well, nearer the time, if it's going to happen, we can sort out which of us is actually going to do Matilda, because I think.
Well, I know, because I thought I was going to be in New York, but obviously.
Well, now you're available again.
Well, I am, but I think it would take them so long to get, even if they wanted to get up and running. I think because those children are practically at university by now. The last cohort.
At university.
Yes, exactly. Locked up at university because I think they wouldn't have been replacing the cohort of 10-year-olds in the interim, which is what they would normally be doing. I mean, they're recruiting and training all the time, aren't they?
Well, yes. All that is true, Ellie, but I shall still keep it penciled in my diary.
Oh, well, it's written in, but I sort of look at it, sadly.
I know.
Like everything else, like all the other plans which have vanished. They've just cancelled the ring cycle for the end of January, which was going to be on in the festival hall. So, I mean, things that were quite far ahead are now being cancelled now, if you see what I mean. So it's just getting worse and worse.
And I know Birmingham Royal Ballet is still sort of hoping that they might do something. They've been doing sort of open house sessions, and they asked me to do a snatch of audio description in a room so people could go and do it.
Has the Royal Opera House been heard of?
Jonathan has just, because this new season, Jonathan has just written to them again.
Yes.
And a series of polite replies, which don't lead to anything. And the chap he's written back said that he's really interested again, but he's on holiday at the moment, so he'll get back to us. I'm not holding my breath. I wrote to E&O some time ago, suggesting that a brilliant opportunity to audio describe their driving thing they've just done. I could have done it from my...
Oh, yes.
But again, and Fiona McPherson came back really keen, and she passed it on and said, I would like to hear back too, but neither of us have. So it's just, I just keep doing it, and one day we'll get a positive answer. And it's the same with the RSC. I think Carolyn is in the process of drafting it. We're going to draft this email to Vicky, I think.
Vicky.
Yeah, she tends to pass it on to the digital production department, but
where it gets lost forever.
Well, yes, they don't. The people on the way they've passed it on means that it's being done by TV describers, the ones that are on TV.
Oh, the ones in the BBC Culture in Quarantine.
Probably the ones that will be on BritBox as well. And they just don't seem to have twigged that. I'm not sure that digital production even are aware that there are already audio descriptions of all these things.
No, because the missing link, which is Josepha presumably, is not there
at the moment.
No, and if you're furloughed, you don't get your work emails.
You don't.
So you're not even aware of what people are asking.
I know David Bellwood, the Globe, was thinking of bringing David Bellwood back for a short period of time, and at Vocalise, Michael Kenyon has sort of come back for 2 weeks and then gone off again and come back again. So people are trying, some organisations trying to bring people back for brief snatches, but I don't think they've sorted that at the RSC just yet. So
I don't think it's top of their list, is it?
No, it's just disappointing, because the ones we've done, the ones the National's done, and the ones that with the Coriolanus that Veronica and I did from, a theatre audio description still works just as well on a TV.
Well, pretty much. After all, I mean, the most of the work's been done, hasn't it? So,
Dan and I just finished doing a description for Emilia. The one at the Vaudeville, which was at the Globe, which I think they're going to be putting online quite soon.
Oh, right. I could make a note of that.
Yes.
I wouldn't if I were you.
I have to say, I thought it was vastly improved.
Oh, really? Oh, well.
Because they cut it, didn't they?
They cut it by an hour.
Yeah. So it is on its way then?
Well, we've finished, haven't we, Ali?
Yeah.
We've finished. I mean,
Yeah, it hung fire for ages, didn't
Yes.
it? It was getting the original release from the Globe or something.
Yes, and Gary has been communicating with Tom and sent our finished audio description track and video and everything. So we've done our bit.
But I do agree with you, Julia. It was vastly improved.
Yes.
Vastly improved. It was. I really enjoyed it, which I didn't
Yes.
at the Globe. But
No.
don't tell anybody.
Yes, I enjoyed it, which I didn't at the Globe. A lot of the ranting was taken out.
And it was a lot more focused. And
Yes. Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, it was lovely. It was the joy to work.
Yes,
on
the
it.
comedy worked a lot better, I thought. Yes.
Well, let me know when it's going live, and I'll do an item on it.
I'll write to the production company and see when I can get an exact date from them.
Yes, that would be great.
Okay, well, I'm going to head off
Keeping
to
us
my
informed, though, weren't they, Julia?
I'm sorry?
The company were pretty good at keeping us informed.
They were. They've been very, and I've been paid already, immediately.
Oh, have you? Oh, I've only just invoiced because I thought maybe I shouldn't invoice until it was up, and then I thought, no, I will. And I invoiced to Tom. Is that what you did?
Yes, I did that, and I got paid within a week. So.
Oh, right. Well, hopefully, furloughed. I'll wait for a year or something.
Well, it's they really everyone is putting the RSC to shame on this, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really disgraceful.
I think it is. I think it really is. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to say goodbye because I've got babysitting.
Yes. Bye then, Julia.
Goodbye. Lovely to see you.
Have a great meeting. Okay, bye.
Yes.
There's some not entirely unsurprising, but still worrying trends coming out of the Royal Shakespeare Company at the moment. I had a friend who was in the company when it closed, and yeah, some of the stories that she was telling about how that was handled was pretty shocking for a company with their annual turnover.
Not to mention all their property assets.
Absolutely. Hard to believe they're short of cash, isn't it? When the rest of us are scrabbling down the back of the roads to see if any customers dropped a fiver just before they left in March. You can put it in a meter, keep us going for another few days.
I like it.
I think that's the positivity of it all, isn't it? That actually our audiences, irrespective of whatever sort of personal traumas they may have been going through, have been incredibly supportive. I don't know how many of you have been involved in fundraising efforts or, buy a ticket for nothing, promotions or whatever. But certainly audiences have been incredibly generous from what I've seen across the sector. Right, well, I make it 15:15. Hope everyone managed to get a brew and maybe a cheeky dark chocolate digestive. If that might just have been me. Needs must on a day like today. So two back-to-back, well, not back-to-back, we'll take a break in between them sessions. This is the real problem with not having any catering, because normally sort of 5 minutes before time on the AGM, somebody would have wheeled in a coffee trolley. There would have been that smell in the air, and that would have, sped us all up. So if it just before 2 o'clock, you could imagine the smell of a sausage roll or a, cheese bap or something, and that will just help you kind of get the sort of natural rhythm into these sessions. But when we were talking about this, there's just an executive a few weeks ago about, well, what do we offer on a day like today in this odd situation we find ourselves in. We reflected on how successful the regular meetings had been in terms of discussion, and that actually there would likely be obviously some crossover between participants, but there would be participants today who hadn't benefited from those sessions over the previous few months where we've run them. But that it was a good opportunity to sort of take stock a little bit and assess where we are as an AGM always is, I suppose, for any organisation. But that actually what might be worth starting with is a sort of assessment of where we find ourselves after the last 6 months. and what that might look like. As I sent invites out to people from around the regions to ask them to kind of give their perspective, I got almost unanimously the same message back, which was, it might be a bit bleak, or it's not good news, and I think we recognise that, but I think it's also important to just sort of note what has happened or what hasn't happened, what has disappeared, and what remains, so that we can continue to sort of make plans for the future. We've got 5 people for this session who volunteered to speak, faces that many of you will know, and I think some people who are new to the organisation as well. So over the next sort of 45 minutes to an hour, we're going to hear from Ros. Thank you for joining us, Ros. I hear you've been working today, so thank you so much for sparing us some time, which is great. From Anne, from Tina, right, yes, there you are, Tina. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure everyone's in the room as I'm introducing them. From Brid, and from Beth as well. Hi, Beth, welcome to the session. So I'm going to go around one at a time. What I've asked people to do is give a sort of 5-minute update on their area and what they know and what's happening, and then once we've done that, we'll open the floor to questions and queries. So if while these 5 beautiful humans are talking, if you've got any questions you want to raise, if you could just either pop them in the chat or note them down somewhere, and I'll come to you once we've been round everybody, and then we'll have some time to discuss and debate, and hopefully that'll lead us quite naturally into our second discussion later on this afternoon. So let's start now. How should we do this? Let's start in the north. Let's start in the northwest, Anne.
Everybody, nice to see everybody, actually. So what's been happening? Well, March 16th, everything came to a halt, of course. So with Mind's Eye, we normally do about 250 to 300 shows or events a year. So the diary emptied. I do leave everything on. I think I just heard people saying, I do leave everything still on my laptop calendar, which means I do get alerts every day, which I quite like, because it's kind of in a parallel universe. I would have been at Wolverhampton Grand describing Dirty Dancing, or at the Lowry describing something else. So yeah, the only work that I've had over the 6 months is that one of the galleries I work with decided to put 3 of their exhibitions online, which was fabulous. So I did the description for those. Home in Manchester, which is those of us of a certain age used to call an art centre, as in it has a cinema, a gallery and theatres. They, bless them, have been doing a series of online shows, mostly about 10 minutes, 15 minutes long, filmed by people in their houses. And I have been doing the description for most of those for online. And yeah, that's about it. Looking ahead, Home have now opened as a socially distanced cinema, and they open in a couple of weeks as a socially distanced theatre. And I've been booked to do 4 shows there over October, November, December. So that's hopeful. From the sound of things, they're mainly audio, more like an audio installation really, with a bit of visuals thrown in. So that will be interesting to see what they're doing. And then sorry to repeat that, as Neil mentioned earlier, moving their show, which is normally in the small theatre, into the large theatre. The small theatre, just for interest, they're renting out to be used as a courtroom to relieve pressure ports. So that's a source of income for them. But it means that they can space out the audience in the larger theatre. So that's the Gruffalo. And then again, as I mentioned before, 2 shows at Norwich. That's not in the northwest. It's right on the other side of the country. But yeah, those 2 down there on the same day. And Storyhouse have made noise about getting their Christmas show described, but they haven't actually booked me yet. So who knows? Like so many of us here, I have invested in microphones and recording equipment and so on, got myself trained up on Stella and Reaper, and so I now can do a lot more things from the comfort of the back bedroom, which previously I would always have gone into a studio to do. So I feel more confident at being able to offer those online services and the digital end of things than I did before. Yeah, that's me, that's us.
Thanks, Anne. Really appreciate it. I'm going to work around the country in a clockwise direction now, and hope my geography is about right. So Tina, I think you're in York, aren't you, and looking after that part of the world?
I am in York. I'm not looking after the whole of our area, the northeast. But yes, Theatre Royal, I did work in, along with 2 other describers. That closed very early on, and the latest is that a lot of the staff have been made redundant, but Livy, who is our personal contact, our access officer, is still employed. So although she's not in the building, but she does clock in every Wednesday. So if we want to ask her anything, we can do. They've been running very small shows in parks and in a little tiny courtyard that we have to the side of the Theatre Royal. But obviously they haven't been described. Very, very small numbers allowed to attend them. So we've done nothing for the last 6 months, which is sad. I also describe in Darlington with Vicky Ackroyd, and again, council-run theatre closed right in the middle of a season, and again, no signs of it opening anytime soon that I know of, which is really sad. Jill, who's our 3rd person who lives in the area, normally does whole truck. And again, nothing doing. So I don't know if anybody else knows any updates other than me, but that would be very welcome if you do. So it's a sad picture at the moment. So I'm keeping fingers crossed that the theatres, at least as buildings, survive, so that when we can put something on, they're there and ready. That's the big worry, you know, that they close down completely. I'd hate to see that.
Yes, absolutely, Tina.
Pretty much.
No, thank you very much. No, much appreciated. And yes, that is the situation, I think. And the Cultural Recovery Fund announcement is due on Monday, and I know many venues will be in that pot, waiting, ourselves included, waiting for a decision. Yeah, we'll hopefully that will save some venues. So yes, but thank you for the update, much appreciated. Right, let's take a zoom down the M1 and try and avoid the traffic as we go across the M25. Roz, I think you're going to update us on London and the southeast.
It's very difficult to just update on London and the southeast, because at the moment we're kind of in touch with everybody.
And I'm going to try and be a little bit upbeat and say where we find ourselves is upskilled, because a lot of us have approached different, describing different ways. So we have learned a really rock solid kind of platform for adding description to videos, which allowed us to do the National Theatre. They had about 7 or 8 productions that were online that were described, and that reached 140,000 viewings. Not necessarily 140,000 different people, 140,000 viewings over that period, which means that there are an awful lot more people out there now who know that description exists. So that was really good. People like Julia and Jane have been working with Royal Opera House, bringing dance and opera to the screen. So that's been very good. I've been working at the Old Vic doing all descriptions over Zoom. So there have been 3 very small scale socially distanced plays, which were getting audiences of 3,000 a night, because they've been attracting people like Andrew Scott, who's very popular over here, Michael Sheehan, who's very popular over here. So that's been probably about, audiences about 3,000 a night. We weren't able to track down exactly and drill down to the numbers. But we know that there were people who were listening to the audio description, which I regret to say was very minimal. But nevertheless, it was there and it was out there, and there were introductory notes that were provided beforehand. And because a lot of the people have been furloughed in the places that we normally work, we're now working with different people. So we're working with marketing people, we're working with digital managers, we're working with artistic directors, because they're the people who are permanent and they're in the building. We're working with sound engineers who travel all over the country and have a very high profile. They now know about audio description. And hopefully when we come back, we'll have a better approach, we'll have a better platform for talking about audio description, because more people will know about it. Often you find you go into a place, into a theatre, and the only person who knows that you're in there is the possibly the person who does the sound check with you and the access officer. Now our faces and our voices are being known to other people. I don't think that's a bad thing. In London, we've had a few shows that have been done outside. We've had places like the Troubadour at Wembley that has done a performance that was, I think Tim went actually, was Sleepless. I think that was the one that Tim went to. Wasn't described. Now this is the thing. We really need to be getting onto things very, very sharp to say, why is it not being described? Because we have the means to do it now. We have the means to do it live, and we have the means to do it digitally at a later date. And there is now no excuse for not providing an audio described, at least once during the run. With the Old Vic, we are describing it every single night. So there is absolutely no reason why, if people can't get to the theatres, why it can't be described. At the Open Air Theatre, Jesus Christ Superstar has been described live. At the National Theatre, the Death of England Delroy will be described live, and they're bringing a pantomime, which they've whipped from the lyric Hammersmith, which is Dick Whittington, and it will be socially distanced. Chichester has done very well because they've been putting their material out. You know, you've got places like the Minack in Cornwall who have been doing socially distanced theatre, but they're generally only one-man shows, one-woman shows at the moment. So it's going to be a while. I'd be very interested to know how Dick Whittington works out, because it's supposed to be a traditional panto. But it is creeping back. Things are creeping back in London and the southeast. They are creeping back, but what I don't want to lose is this feeling that, okay, we're open so everybody wants to come. There are going to be some people who cannot come. There are some people who are not going to feel safe to come. So while we can do this digital work, while we can do this distanced description, we need to be looking for better platforms. So it's very clear what the best platform work doing, and there needs to be a better platform for that. And we need to make sure that the people who can't come because they are older, because they have underlying conditions, a lot of our our listeners are diabetic, they've lost their sight through diabetes, we need to make sure that that is still there and available for them. So it is a new time, it is new challenges, but the describers, I'm so proud of the describers because they've done it on their own. They haven't been helped by any organisation. They haven't been spoon-fed by any organisation. They just rolled up their sleeves and they said, we need to get some more, we need to invest stuff, and we need to get this out there. And so they are still providing a service.
Very good.
Thank you, Ros. Yeah, and absolutely would echo that. It really has been, I said earlier, you know, the creativity and innovation shown by audio describers has been phenomenal, and the amount of content that's been out there, I think as I don't think I'm making much of a secret, as most of you know, that, you know, we've always been interested in the technological side of audio description and how we can better provide through technology, and I think this has given us a great leap forward, but I'm going to talk a bit more about that in the second session, so I'll keep stum for now. Thank you, Ros. Yeah, that's great, and yes, it is good to hear that things are coming back slowly. But yes, as well as a producer, the solo shows are very attractive because there's a whole bunch of things you don't have to worry about if you've only got one performer on stage. Although, as the old Vic saw with Three Kings, you're not immune, although that wasn't COVID related, but you can still lose a performer. And when it's a solo show, that's a real issue, particularly if you've sold all your tickets off the back of them. Let's jump on the M4. I'm really enjoying this, my little virtual drive around. And it's certainly the quickest I've ever done the M1 or the M4 for that matter. And go to Beth. Beth, do you want to just introduce yourself to start with? Because I'm not sure how many people, other than myself, know you in the room.
Shemai, Pnawn da, pawb. I'm Beth, based in Cardiff. I'm a middle-aged white woman with my hair scraped back, sunglasses very hopefully perched on top of my head, and a bright yellow hoodie because it's a bit chilly in my very cluttered room. So please ignore the clutter behind me. I'm from Taking Flight Theatre Company. We're an inclusive theatre company based in South Wales, creating work with deaf, disabled, partially sighted and non-disabled professionals. And we've been going for 12 years, and throughout the time we've been working on embedding audio description into our work. So we haven't historically worked with audio describers, we've embedded the description in, and that's been through working with blind and partially sighted performers who've required that in the rehearsal room, but also thinking about blind and partially sighted audiences. But sort of being embedded in Wales and kind of trying to persuade other producing organisations and venues to offer audio description highlighted some of the sort of particular challenges that we do face in Wales, I think, that perhaps are a bit more unusual than some of other parts of the UK. One of them being obviously Wales is a bilingual nation, so language of audio description causes questions whether a piece of theatre is in Welsh or English or is bilingual, and who will or could audio describe that, and what language would the description be required in, because what language would the audience who want to hear the description speak as opposed to the language that the piece is in, it might not be the same, and what are the ethics around that, and that raises lots of political questions about should you audio describe something in English if the production's in Welsh. I could go on, you know, so that's one of the things we face. Added to that, until very recently, there was only one audio describer based in Wales, and he wasn't a Welsh speaker, so that kind of didn't provide for Welsh speaking audio description. And also, I think, I mean, I get the sense, having worked across the UK and toured across the UK and worked with various theatres like the Arena and Derby Theatre, I do think, and if anyone here is based in Wales and gets cross with me, I do apologise, but I think we are lagging behind in Wales slightly in terms of attitude and willingness to provide access in general. And it's something that Taking Flight we've been shouting about for 12 years and putting lots of pressure on, because we embed all forms of access, or all forms of access. That's not a possible language caption and audio description in our work. But I think that there has been a reluctance amongst venues and producing companies to do the same or take that on or provide access. And it kind of, I get the sense that it's a bit of a vicious circle thing happening, where in the past audiences for audio description haven't been particularly numerous, and what's the word, haven't provided the financial feedback that has been required. So it's been a venue's position to say, well, that didn't work, let's not bother again, rather than seeing it as a long game and thinking, well, hang on a minute, maybe we didn't get anybody this time, maybe we didn't advertise it properly, maybe we didn't audio describe a show that people wanted to experience, maybe, you know, there's other question. The sort of knee-jerk reaction has been, well, we only got one person, so we're not doing that again. And that is something that we're still battling against. I know that's something that's moved on perhaps in other parts of the UK, where you do get greater numbers for audio described performances. Here, you usually are talking single figures for audio described performances, even with our biggest venues, like the Sherman, like the New Theatre, perhaps not the New so much. So that's something that Taking Flight have been kind of trying to do our bit in changing, sort of breaking that vicious circle. So a couple of years ago, we decided that we needed more audio describers who were based in Wales and potentially different voices. So we'd have a bit of male, female voices, different accents, and definitely including some Welsh language audio describers. So we persuaded Arts Council Wales to fund us in training 9 audio describers with Vocalise, including Welsh speakers. And so that was really successful. So there are now more working audio describers in Wales. However, we're still on that journey of trying to persuade organisations to consider audio description along with other forms of access. Because at the moment, everybody, I don't know what the thing is, but everybody in Wales is really obsessed with British Sign Language. And I think that's fantastic, and absolutely performances need to be sign language interpreted. But when you talk about access, people say, oh no, we've got a BSN interpreter. We don't really want to talk about it anymore. And that's that. So that's the journey we're on at the moment. Actually, weirdly, a bit like Roz, I'm not going to be all doom and gloom, because I think we've come from a position of there isn't that much that's audio described in Wales. There wasn't an awful lot to lose when the pandemic hit in that sense. So one of the last things I did actually was audio describe Kate O'Reilly's The Beauty Parade at the Wales Millennium Centre. And that was the first outing for a theatre group that I set up because of this constant feedback from venues. Well, we're not going to do that because nobody comes. So I set up a theatre group with Cardiff Institute for the Blind, and we had about sort of 10 members here and there. And we just did our first trip to go and see the Beauty Parade all together, and then the pandemic hit. So that was the last thing we did. But some of the organisations that I ordinarily would have been working with did put their work online. So we did a production of Go Tell the Bees, which was a piece that was specially commissioned for the pandemic by National Theatre Wales, which had online description, which I recorded under my table with duvets around me on my iPhone. So I'd be really interested in hearing a bit more about some of the tech support, because I personally am not very good with tech, and I've been kind of cobbling things together and responding to people's requests for online things. For example, doing audio description on Zoom for Surge Festival cabaret performances, which there was no possibility of seeing it beforehand because the performers weren't ready, and it was done using WhatsApp with a separate call for the people who were receiving the audio description on a WhatsApp call with me. I was on mute watching the visuals on Zoom, but obviously that was very rudimentary. So I would be really interested if anybody wanted to offer training or provide mentoring on how to kind of upskill my technical skills, so that I would actually know. As I said, I recorded the audio description in one long track. It was an hour-long performance of Go Tell the Bees, and I just pressed record on my phone and hoped for the best, and I had a few goes at it because they wanted it provided to them in one long track, an hour long, which they would then overlay onto the YouTube video. There must have been a better way of me doing that, but I didn't know, so I just did it with my phone. Roz has got her thumbs up. She's going, yes, why did you do that? That's ridiculous. So I would be very marked for upskilling my own technical abilities, so that I didn't always think there must be a different way of doing this. So yeah, we've had some interest in online, and hopefully what I'm really hoping is for example, Green Man Festival, obviously that was cancelled. So it was turned into Green Man Field of Streams. And they did some online content, which was free to all. They didn't charge for tickets to go to the Green Man Field of Streams. And they tried to audio describe as much as they could. They've never approached anybody that I know of for audio description in the past. And I went to their festival a couple of years ago and thought the access wasn't amazing at the festival. So hopefully, having done it online, they may then go and gather together the confidence that when they are back in the field, they will consider adding access to some of their field performances and talks and things like that. I'm hoping that that will be a positive impact, like Ros was saying about, you know, what can we carry forward from the pandemic that we've learned that actually might have a positive impact. So that's what I'm hoping for. So yeah, that's it from Wales. Going forward, I just wanted to sort of mention that my big questions are how to ensure that producing companies and surviving venues don't drop access, because it's, you know, everything else is so tight that they go, oh, well, that's something that we can get rid of because it will save us some money, and how we convince them that our audiences are the most neglected and have been the most disproportionately impacted by the pandemic and need us more than ever to feel connected and to feel part of something again, even if they are, as Ros said, still isolating and unable to physically be in a space. They may well need us even more than ever. And how to encourage representation within access provision, because it strikes me it's another area of society where it's perhaps not as representative as it could be. And a question I ask myself frequently is, am I the right audio describer for this production? For example, if the first time I ever did an audio description was because my friend Alistair, who is obviously a boy, was asked to audio describe an all-female production of Henry VI or Richard III in the Wales Millennium Centre. And he said, no, I can't do that. I'm a male. I would be the only male voice in the space. It would be wrong for me to do that. And so he wrote the audio description, which I then delivered. And that's what ignited my desire and passion for audio description. I loved it. And now I learned that lesson from Alistair is when I'm offered a job, I ask myself, am I the right describer for that job? And is there another describer who's more appropriate? And I would be really interested to hear more about diversity within audio description and where we find new voices of describers and how we, you know, get better at things like that too. So that's my questions for the future, which I thought I'd add on the end. Sorry, that's more than 5 minutes. I've waffled.
No, it's perfect. Perfect. Diolch, Beth. That's fantastic. Great update. You know, there's a little bit hiding in there. I've got a Welsh mother-in-law. If you don't know Talking Flight Theatre, please check them out. I've just put their web link in the chat box. They are brilliant. Yeah, thank you to Beth for coming in. I went to to the source for when we had the conversation. It'd be nice if we could get a representation from Wales. And my thought was, well, if Taking Flight don't know who, then we really are in trouble. So yeah, thank you for that. That's much appreciated and good to hear the option. Yeah, also Beth, for your advantage, you may not have seen it, it's in the chat box. Gary Giles will answer all of your AD technology questions, and we were hoping to get him for the session this afternoon, but unfortunately he's otherwise engaged today. So but yes, there is loads of help out there, and words like Stellar and Reaper, which the audio describers in the room know well. Yeah, that's really fantastic for people helping out there. Right, we've got a couple of options here. I think, though, I'm going to take the scenic route up through Wales to Holyhead and get on the ferry there to head over to Dublin for an update from Brid.
Hi Neil, how are you doing? Hello everybody, I'm Brid, I'm speaking from Dublin. We're in level 3 lockdown here, so I thought it might be useful if I did a really potted history of the differences between where we are in Ireland at the moment and then I suppose like I also do some work in Northern Ireland, so I've kept abreast of what's going on in the UK, but I don't expect you guys to have kept abreast of what's going on in Ireland for that reason. So where we are at the moment in Dublin, we're in a higher level of lockdown than everywhere else. So no pubs, no restaurants, takeaway only, one visitor to each other's households. It's not the most severe. I think level 5 is the most severe. So we're not quite back to where we were in March and April. But the bad news was that lockdown was put in place 2 weeks before the theatre industry was due to reopen. So we've been in complete shutdown since March 12th. I was on that day, I'm a performer as well, so we were rehearsing Carmen and with our National Symphony Orchestra, and then that evening I was due to go into the National Theatre and rehearse or do a read through of my audio description for a new play that was opening that weekend. And then the Taoiseach gave, that's our Prime Minister, gave a speech in the US saying, nope, everybody close your doors. And so we did. And that's where we still are in terms of theatre. On the upside, I'm going to follow Roz's lead here. We've had a fairly robust financial package put in place for artists. It had its teething problems, certainly, but we've had this thing called the PUP, and it's meant that people can, even if you're self-employed, and a lot of my colleagues, as well as in the describing world in the UK, have had difficulties getting funding, whereas pretty much everybody was able to get onto €350 a week. Now that's dropped slightly at the moment. We're at 300, but we have most of the people working in the arts have been able to renew that, and will continue getting that payment into next April. I think April 2021 is where we're looking at the moment. So, so while there has been almost no work provided, a lot of people are still, like, they may be furloughed, but they are still connected to their institutions. So we haven't had that sort of wiping the slate clean in terms of losing all of your connections with access agents and managers. So that's another, like, a positive sign. Where we are in terms of the work, I feel that because everything stopped so suddenly and really stayed shut down with no hope of reopening for about 2 months, it meant that everybody went into overdrive in the arts world, how to reimagine shows that had already been funded, and how to try and work towards the end of the summer to reopen these things. And sadly, access completely dropped off the radar. I know I'm hearing this from you guys as well, so I know you'll understand where we're coming from. A show that I had audio described last summer was streamed live for the last 2 months from our National Theatre. It would have, I would have, for no fee, I would have recorded what I had written last year on top of, because it was an archive show of last year's show. I would have happily provided that. So would my colleague, because there was 2 of us working on that show. We offered that. It didn't get take up. So I'm very aware of the fact that we had built up really quite a large following in our National Theatre, in the Abbey Theatre, and that they have had 0 theatre since March, where there have been sort of, you know, there have been short plays. There's quite a lot of programs of short plays, 1 to 5 minutes, and then being filmed, whether like on proper cameras or on Zoom or whatever, and then streamed. None of that was audio described. Some of them were signed, almost all of them were subtitled, but no audio description whatsoever. So, like, we're pushing back now, and I think because the worst of the financial worries haven't been placed on our shoulders as arts practitioners, we feel, okay, we're not going to tiptoe around this. We have, we're in a stasis for sure. It's not, we don't know how viable the industry is next year, but for now, there is money, there's the ability to do the work, therefore we should do it, and we're pushing a little bit more that way. So at the moment, I'm in contact with all of the different theatres that are hoping to put shows back on. There's the Dublin Theatre Festival, which is currently on pause. It has audio description listed on its website, and there is no audio description. So we're pushing at that door, going, you know, you should be doing audio description, so you need to start doing audio description. One of the plus points and Anne would be aware of this because she came over here and did a lot of our training. A lot of our audio description is legislated for under Equality and not Disability Act. So there is an imperative. I don't know if it's the same legally in the UK, but it's not an opt-in service, it's an imperative. And one of the big bonuses that I've noticed in the last 6 months is that our Broadcasting Association, which would do a huge amount of the public access funding or public service television funding, they require all of the shows that are funded by them to have audio description. So there's been a massive uptick for me and for some of my colleagues in providing audio description for our television. And again, to echo Roz's positivity from earlier, that means more Irish people are hearing audio description, more people who had maybe never come to the, to the main population centres, they're getting to use a service and see how it works for them. Audio description's only about 10 years old in Ireland, really, much younger than the very long-standing tradition we have in the UK. But I feel that if we can continue that in television, that people are more familiar with audio description and can demand it as a right, then that will eventually in turn lead to the theatres coming back in and saying, I've just seen, sorry, can we borrow your government? You can have them, okay? They're not perfect, but sorry, I just saw that pop up in the message. But basically, yeah, that's where we're at. It's about advocating as loudly as we can. It's about trying to be as creative as our arts practitioner colleagues and saying we have new ways of doing audio description. I came to audio description from being a voice director and a voiceover artist. So luckily I had a lot of that tech stuff with me. I've another thing we've been using over here is audio movers, where I will record into a microphone through a browser window, and it's connected to a sound engineer in a studio, so that the quality is as close to studio quality as we can get. But we've been recording videos and promos, and I'm starting again to work with galleries. So yeah, it's very much coming out of the dark, shall we say. And the last thing I was going to point out as a sort of a ray of positivity is this whole idea of people cocooning has turned our population into realizing that some people need more access than others, or that they need more help in accessing things than others, so that we are more aware now that people might need a little bit of help because we're being told daily, do this so that somebody else can do that. And the upshot of that has been a lot of galleries getting in touch, asking about access audits, asking about how maybe their spaces can be, even if it's just the wayfinding around their spaces, could be made accessible to a wider audience. So I certainly see the work is coming in television, the work is coming in cultural institutions, and hopefully theatre will follow. I also am a bilingual audio describer vet, so I'm on your team. I got to do my first ever, because there's no demand for it, I think, but I got to do my first ever television series in Irish, audio describing my first ever television series in Irish this year, so that was pretty cool. That's it from Dublin. Sorry for talking so long and so fast. Cheers.
I've muted myself rather than unmuting myself. Thank you, Brid, much appreciated. And yeah, I mean, can you imagine guaranteed income from the government to underlie the losses that you're making? I mean, what a crazy, affordable, achievable idea.
I don't know how you guys are coping. I really don't. And I'm inspired by how resilient you all are. I just wanted to say that.
Well, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's really tough, but hopefully we emerge out the other side, but not due to the help we've been given. So there we go. Anyway, where are we? So that was those were the 5 that were lined up, but a couple of things have come through while we've been talking, and I felt it might be worthwhile. And as we're in Dublin anyway, and we can go through US immigration at the airport there rather than do it the other side, it seemed to make sense that we might jump on a quick flight to Washington DC. I'm getting too into this now, I'm really sorry, but it might be worth Joel, just because there's a couple of questions I think that have come your way about the situation in the US. We're going to have a look at technology, I think, in some detail in the later session. But if you just give us a picture of how things are going stateside, that'd be really useful.
Well, sure. Thanks, Neil. And you're all welcome when you get on that plane. Maybe charter a plane. Bring all of ADA to Washington, D.C. I have a big house. You've got a place to stay. We'll have a great time. And we'll bring all the refreshments. Isn't that right, Ann?
Cheers.
Excellent. I just responded to a great note from Roz about pre-recorded description for live theater. And I for those that perhaps did not see the chat, it's done here, principally on Broadway. It's fairly limited. And there are issues with the quality of the description because garbage in, garbage out, no matter what the technology, if the people creating the description are not top notch, you're not going to have good description. The technology balks at times. And then obviously, how do you accommodate the inevitable changes that happen sometimes from performance to performance to performance? We have one initiative where we're trying to encourage the League of Broadway Producers to encourage, God forbid, mandate the development of audio description scripts for hit Broadway shows that would then tour with the show, because it's the same production. It might be limited according to the space in one city or another, but then the local describer could study it, preview the show, and then not have to reinvent the wheel. I did mention, though, in the chat, in our experiment with Arena Stage, what we did there was essentially think of the audio describer as a cast member. Wouldn't necessarily need to be paid as an equity union cast member. And I say that as an Actors Equity member for 45 years. No, it could be a because they're not a equity member. I know that's a little different in the UK, but they could be. I would be open to that certainly. But the notion is they could be paid a flat fee like a non-equity support person, and then they are at every rehearsal. They actually build an audio description script throughout the rehearsal period, consult with the director, consult with the scenic designer, consult with the costume designer, et cetera, et cetera. And by opening night, they're able to provide description, and like any cast member, they're there every night. And so they offer description on demand. Why shouldn't a person who's blind be able to go up to the box office on any given day and say, I'd like to see the show tonight. Oh, and by the way, I need the description. No problem. The person is there, they can offer it. Unlike a cast member, they can leave after a half hour if no one's there to use the description. Depends. That's how we did it at Arena Stage for 2 different productions a couple of years back with a small grant, albeit absolutely, because we paid the describer and we paid Arena Stage to accommodate them in some administrative costs and such. We developed a touch book that was in the lobby so that people could touch swatches of costumes, fabric, a model of scenic designs, that sort of thing. And of course, touch tours, that kind of thing as well. It worked real well. So I think the jury's out on recorded descriptions, certainly. The only other thing I'll say is I don't want to monopolize the discussion here, but is that we're seeing a lot of growth with 2 different apps. Spectrum Access, which is an outgrowth of what had been called ActiView. And then there's one other called SoundFi. And these are apps that you download to your phone. They enable the phone to hear what's going on a stage, on a screen, on your television at home. You download to the app the audio description track, a pre-recorded track for whatever that movie is that you're going to see in the movie theater, in cinema, or in the live theater, or at home if you're going to play some movie. the app then syncs the description automatically so that it blends perfectly. It avoids the issue of, well, I've got family members who they don't really want to hear the description, and you're at home, you know, well, there's no way currently that I know of to fix that. But if the person using description is using their app with their own smartphone, their own earbud, nobody else has to have the description on. And in the same way, for cinema, you know, with COVID, do you really want people using earbuds that everybody else has used, using equipment that everybody else has used? Has it been cleaned every time, etc.? You would still have, the theaters would still need to offer it, because access shouldn't be dependent on somebody owning a smartphone. But as time goes on, we're going to be at smartphones being like the family phone, the landline phone or something, or you know, everybody will have that capability, and will have universal broadband and such. So I think that's something that holds promise. Not as much perhaps for live theater, but certainly for cinema and for watching streaming services at home. So those are a few things I think that are on the horizon that come to mind. As I think of others, I'll mention them, Neil.
Thanks, Joel. That's really valuable. It's good to hear the situation on the other side of the Atlantic. And on a personal level, it's great to hear somebody who's got contact with Arena Stage, because this is the Arena Theatre behind you, and we regularly get emails that are meant for Arena Stage that come to us, and I think vice versa. So it's nice to finally put a link into that building on the other side of the Atlantic. Right, I'm aware that we're sort of pushing up on time again now, so I wondered whether anybody had any immediate thoughts that they wanted to share. I know that our panel for the second session is a lot smaller than we'd originally envisaged because of people picking up work, so I'm happy to roll this on into the afternoon discussion. As I said, the later session was very much around technology and the future, but I have some hands, so let's go to Paula first.
Hello everyone.
Hi Paula.
Hi.
Go here. Hi.
Hello. Oh gosh, it's so fantastic to hear those audio describers' voices that I've been missing, and to hear all those fantastic voices from around the country and the world. It's just brilliant. I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and been some brilliant discussions. But there's something that's happening to me. I listen on an iPad, and every time anyone types a message, it's read out to me quite loudly above everybody else speaking. So I'm really struggling to hear the speakers when people do these typey chat things. And if I could just please request, if it's really important, carry on doing it. But if it's something that could kind of like wait till the end or something, with lots of, you know, emails and websites and stuff like that, would you mind just like not doing it over the top of when people are speaking so that I can continue to hear? I'm really sorry, it sounds like a bit of a moan, but
No,
it's
Paula.
disconcerting.
No, it's really valuable because...
Can we mute the chat apart from for you, Neil, and then you can?
I don't know. But
I think you can. I was hoping it was muted for.
Is the chat box? I suppose.
The chat box. You can mute the chat box. So
can I mute it myself?
No, I think the host has to do it.
I'll work it out.
Then they can bring it into the discussion if they feel they want to.
I mean,
muted.
Some of it's really good and useful. Obviously, you're going to add all of these useful websites and email addresses and everything into the minutes, aren't you, Carolyn? So I won't miss out on all of those contacts. But yeah, that's brilliant. Sorry, it's a complaint, but it's stopping me hearing all this fantastic stuff that people are saying. So.
Not at all, Paula, and it's really valuable that we know that. I had no idea that was how the access on that bit worked, and actually it sounds like a good solution to the access problem that it poses, but it's creating another one. And why am I not surprised that one solution in this digital world has caused a problem somewhere else? But no, absolutely. So I think I've shut that down now. But in the meantime, just everyone be on your best behaviour.
Thank you.
And we'll share it. No, not at all. Anne, your hand is up.
Yep, I just wondered if we could possibly hear from Mag-Ann, because she's out of the UK, and it'd be good to just have her perspective as well. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Absolutely.
Hi, Joel pretty much covered everything that's happening in the US, but I'm in a much smaller city than Joel is in, so it's a kind of different here. I did have a very small win this week. Some of you guys know I'd been doing the audio description for the Muni, which were all virtual performances. I just caught yesterday on YouTube, they were playing segments, they were uploading segments from all those performances in just 2-3 minute segments, and they were not adding the audio description to them, which they had already paid for and was already written and already done. So I contacted them, and they are now offering two YouTube versions of their little segments, because those performances were, those were one night only sort of things. So if you missed them that night, you missed them. So that's exciting. I actually use a software called Closed Caption Creator, which is the Canadian company. Kat might know them. So that's how I work out the timing, which I think is a little different than what all of you guys are using. So if anybody has any questions about that, but that's about it. Thanks, Anne.
Can I just add one thing? That was great, Megan. This notion of posting two versions of a performance, one with description, one without description, is in a way fundamentally offensive. It harkens back to separate but equal in the United States, which didn't work very well. And so one thing that the Audio Description Project is doing, and we're making some progress, is working with Google, who owns YouTube, of course, and working with Facebook, working with other major services that present video, so that they use video players that allow you to toggle on and off audio description, just like you can do with captions. It's not a big deal, and those players exist. There's the Oz player in Australia, there's the JW player, and others that have that capability already. So we're trying to encourage Google and YouTube and Facebook and others to do that.
That's really encouraging to hear, Joel, because we're, I'll go into some detail about it in the next session, but we are just about to put a fairly significant streaming solution into the arena here. And that is one of the biggest questions we've had is multiple audio tracks or for the same output source. So that's really encouraging to hear that the conversations are going on with the big boys, and means I can stand down a couple of my Seattle contacts who were trying to get to the same solution for me. So that's good news. Great. Okay, let's take a break here, I think, because I think we've been going for getting on for an hour. I think there's some really interesting stuff there, and there's some things coming out that will help us for the next session. We marked a half-hour break between these two sessions, and I think we should honour that, because that should be time to maybe upgrade the chocolate biscuit to, you know, a sandwich. So I make it 2:10 now. So should we reconvene at 20 to 3? And we'll continue the discussion. Yeah, I commend you all to your lunches. Yes, hello. Who's?
You want to enable the chat again during the break so that people
I will do that.
Post links and stuff while we're not all talking, and then disable it and
Yes,
start.
I've done that. If somebody could give me a nudge to remind me to disable it when we come back, that would be appreciated as well. Great stuff, folks. I'll see you at 20 to 3.
Can we be unmuted?
Joel, by the way, such apps as you told about are also in Russia as well, but they were blocked by the Google market for some reason. I don't know why. And as for Greta, they are trying to enter the Russian market, and they're in Brazil, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, good point. Yeah. And I hear different, you know, I haven't used Greta. I used movie reading once. They have different features. So pros and cons.
There are also problems with such apps because different broadcasters use the different so-called CPS, something per second. I don't remember what exactly. Something per second, CPS.
I think it might be frames per second, but I don't know.
Maybe frames, but there is also CPS. I don't remember. It's something from subtitles. So FPS as well, and that is why the rate of broadcasting a film is different.
Right. That's right.
And on different channels, and so it makes it impossible to listen to this audio description, unfortunately.
Yeah, sure.
Joe, I came over. I knew the fence deals, and
sure.
Do you remember? Did you meet Monique Bradbury, that I worked with? She was one who got very excited about audio description, and we met the Fan Steels, and
Uh-huh.
she wrote an article for the British Journal of Visual Impairment, and so I was with her, you know, right from the start. And I came over.
Wonderful.
I met the Fan Steels several times.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
saw them in Washington,
Yeah.
and went to a described performance of Cats many years ago.
Right.
And so I was interested when you mentioned Arena Stage again. I thought, oh my goodness, that brings back memories.
Yeah, that's where we all
That's
started with it
started.
in 1981.
Yes.
So yeah.
That's I think when I came over to, well, I think it was 81 or 82, and then Monique published her article in 1983.
Okay.
And that was it was an interview with the Fan Steels.
Right.
We heard about it. We wanted to know more.
Yeah, yeah,
So-
yeah. The Cody's been gone maybe 15 years. Margaret's been gone maybe 10 years. If I'm
Right. Well, I used to be on their Christmas card list, and then
Right.
you know, I didn't hear from them anymore, so I assumed that
Yeah.
it happened,
Yeah.
obviously. But,
That's right. That's right.
They were such an inspiration, and Monique
Yes.
was absolutely thrilled to meet them. And so
Yeah. And
it-
actually, you know, the first literature on audio description occurred several years before we began in 1975, Gregory Fraser in California. We also lost him 15, 20 years ago.
Right.
But he was really an instrumental, really was the first person to
that was
publish
75.
anything about
75.
audio description.
Did you say that was 75?
Yeah, he published a master's thesis. It's on our website. It's on the audio description website, audio description project website, an all audio adaptation of the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, which was a film in the US. And he did a master's thesis on that. And I believe it's 75.
What was his name again?
Gregory Fraser, F-R-A-Z-I-E-R.
Yes, right. Yeah, I think I heard. I think Fan Steels must have talked about him, but
I'm not sure because you know his work was happening and our work was happening really separately.
A long way apart. Yeah.
It wasn't until about 5 years into our work that I met Gregory and
Right.
you know we began to communicate and such. But
no, I think we've met in the past. I'm sure.
oh, I'm sure. Yes, yes, yes.
Nice to see you again.
Good to see you. Good to see you, Ivan.
Me too. Something wrong with my connection.
That's all right.
Nice to see you again. Unfortunately, we can't meet face to face, but
yeah,
no.
yeah, that'll come again.
Are you in America now? Are you broadcast? I mean, are we seeing you in America? Are you in Washington?
I'm in Washington, D.C., just outside Tacoma
Oh.
Park, Maryland.
Oh, I know it well.
Yeah, there you go.
I lived there for 4 years and I loved it.
It's great. It's great. Yeah.
Last year, by the way, we introduced audio description to Kazakhstan, a former Soviet republic.
Yes, wonderful.
And it's a very interesting fact. Sometimes it's not too bad to live in a totalitarian state because they made a project for the government, and just in a couple of days, there was a new law promoting audio description in Kazakhstan.
Wow.
Yes.
Isn't that something? Isn't that something? Wow.
And
well, that's great to hear. Last year, I did a survey with the World Blind Union, and I think we came up with 70-some countries that had some kind of audio description. I don't think Kazakhstan was among them, but I can double check. They are now.
We also trained some audio describers from Serbia and Latvia.
Yeah.
Yes. So
yeah, they might have already been on the list. Latvia, I'm almost certain. Well, I'm not sure, but in any event, yeah. That's great.
And this colleague, this lady from Serbia, she became very active. She wrote to the Society of Blind of Serbia, and so they made several projects before this COVID pandemic.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, that's great.
Not long ago, I made an audio description for Fellini's film Amarcord.
Oh yes, yes, Amarcord. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was very difficult to do it because it's only one male voice talent speaking for all Italian actors. So for the blind, it is very difficult to understand who's speaking.
Yeah.
And by the way, this year, audio description and other accessibility services were introduced in some Russian universities. So they will be taught on the university basis.
Good. Yeah. All right.
Megan, yeah, I'll answer you. Okay.
Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Anne. Thanks for letting me in.
It's
Arranging
like,
for it.
it sounded like something out of a Cluedo game. Matthew Copp's in the waiting room with the question mark.
Lots of people on the call. Excellent.
Yeah, I think we were up to 29 or something at tops, but I think there's still 26, 27. I think Neil's gone to make a sandwich. There have already been quite a lot of plugs for the Describing Diversity report, Matthew.
Oh, excellent. That's fantastic. We've had about, I haven't looked in the last couple of days, but we've had at least 300 downloads of the report. So whether that doesn't mean it's being read, but you know, it's a start.
So, sorry.
Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Roz. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. It's a Zoom day today. I've been Zooming all morning. I'm Zooming afternoon, and all these quite seasick. So.
Yes.
Did you get your film done, Roz?
Yes, I did, thank you. After having had three, this is a film I was working on that had, they promised me the first night thing, and they sent me the first night one. And it had a thing called sync shift, which means that the sound goes out of sync the more and more you go into the film. And it was unintelligible. I mean, I could still hear it, but it was completely out of sync. I'd written almost the first half by the time I realised what was happening. So then I had to go back to them, and they sent a later version. And everything was slightly different. And I was trying to say to Gary, actually, yes, a frame does make a difference. A frame does make a difference. It is geological when it comes to where to put the audio description. Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad it's done. Frankly, it's really good to get them behind me.
Well, I've got the everybody. If I can make a call to, if anybody knows of any online theatre audio description or museum audio description or any arts related audio description that's going online this week from any time soon, like this week or next week, please drop inquiries at vocalize.co.uk, an email with details, and we'll put it in our this week's edition of The Interval and share it out. And that goes any week, actually. So any time anyone has anything interesting, and it could be, doesn't matter what country it's in. English language, I think, for our audience, but yes, do send me anything.
Matthew, we've been talking so much about theatre audio description up until now. I wonder if you're going to have a chance to talk about museum description as well?
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah.
I'm seeing quite a lot go out. You know, people like the National Gallery and the Royal Academy and everything else. None of it seems to be described. So it's.
You mean you've seen a lot of video?
A lot of video that's going out there. It's being advertised and lectures and what have you, and things that are online that I think a lot of people would benefit from if it was made accessible.
I was looking at the I was looking at the National Gallery site, and I didn't see any video recently, or nothing worth. But I might well be wrong.
Welcome, Matthew's coming over the break, and yes, so thank you that reminder about the interval. Those emails that always brightens up the inbox, particularly at this time. So that's really useful. I've just shut down the chat box again as well. So that's now out of service. But thank you for keeping the chat going while the break was on. I'll try and catch up with myself. I went down to make sure that a 2-year-old ate a lot of chocolate, some chocolate, less chocolate than she wanted. But that was my lunch break. We were having this, for those of you who've joined us for this session, we were having a sort of a wonderful world tour of the various people in the rooms and their situation. It has seemed remiss not to just complete the journey while we're here. Kat, I wondered if we could head north from Washington over the border, whether there was an update from Canada. I see you put some stuff in the chat, but just be nice to hear from north of that border.
There are a lot of listening very hard faces.
Yes, there are, aren't there?
Yeah, but we can't hear you, Kat.
Kat's not on mute, so I don't know whether there's a technical issue at her end. While we're excuse me, while we're waiting for Kat, while we've got this jet chartered, shall we try South America and Gabriela? Am I right thinking you're in Brazil, Gabriela?
No, I'm actually in Buenos Aires. Well, we've been in lockdown since March, so long ago. And whatever was being started here in terms of theater audio description has been halted, with a few, very few productions going online, old productions, old plays that had been audio described last year or before that, and not much going on actually, because we have the access problem, of course, and then not much awareness and no government support, so it's hard. I'm sorry to be given rather doom scenario here, but that's it. So we're doing something for platforms, for streaming platforms, for Amazon coming soon, Argentina movies. So that's moving a little bit more than theater. Theater, of course, perhaps now in spring and summer, we are heading into that season. So maybe open air theater a little bit. That's what we're hoping.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Let's try again with me off mute. Thanks, Gabriella. And yeah, we send our love and support your way as well. Kat, I think you're back with us now.
Are you listening to Neil?
How about that? Did that work?
There we go. Hey,
Okay.
there we go.
Sorry about that. My tablet shorted out, and so now I'm trying to figure out Zoom on my phone. So I'm starting back from zero again. I'm trying to figure out this technology. This is Kat speaking from Canada. I am a white person with long, straight, dark hair. Right now I'm wearing a red shirt and am on the east coast of Canada, though usually I'm based in Toronto, which is kind of more central east of our giant country. I would say that what's happening, at least in the east coast or the east end of Toronto, and I'd say probably the majority of Canada, but we have a giant country here. It actually is quite similar to Beth's experience in Wales. We've got bilingual, the theaters that are doing access are like, signed languages. So here it's ASL, and that seems to be the focus. Relaxed performances have kind of taken over as well. And likewise, even before pandemic, the large theaters here are not really offering audio description at all. It's all the small theaters, just smaller, more independent, excuse me, often focusing on artists and work from traditionally marginalized communities. And but because I think that they've always had to be a little bit more creative with budgets and everything, there was quite a quick pivot to online offerings. So while certainly there were a large number of shows that got canceled that I was not able to describe, a lot went online. Well, I've got one next week coming up. However, I think it's at about 3 o'clock in the morning your time in the UK. So I assume that people probably are not going to be up for that one, but I'd be happy to send the information out if anybody's interested. That content is actually going to be recorded, but we're holding an online listening party with community members, hopefully across Canada at that time. So anybody's very welcome to join if they would like.
Thanks, Kat. That's really useful. And yeah, hey, theatre, I'll take theatre any time of the day at the moment, like 3 o'clock in the morning. That's fine. I'll get up. I don't mind. I think we have one more stop on this virtual trip around the world, which is with you, Ivan. Are you in Russia or Bulgaria? I got a bit confused earlier on.
No, I'm in Russia.
In Russia.
Yeah. I live in the south of Russia. My region is called North Caucasus. It's not far from the Chechen Republic, but I work as an audio describer in a Moscow company called ReFilms. So we are doing audio description for films mainly, and our major client is Aeroflot, in-flight entertainment program. So we are doing audio description for the in-flight entertainment program. As for the pandemic situation, well, Russia in general was not on strict lockdown, but all public events were cancelled in Moscow and large cities, and now they are returning. And I know that some theaters now have audio description in their program. As for cinema theaters, we have specialized cinema theaters for the blind, because we have a very large network of the All Russia Society of the Blind. So they demonstrate films in their own premises, and free of charge. As for the internet, we are conquering internet, and we did audio description for some web animated films. Besides, there is a surprise. We did audio description in English for a very awful animated film. I'm sorry to tell that. We call them talking socks, because it was almost socks on their hands and they were talking, and it was very difficult to describe what is going on, but I hope we did it. So And now we're working on some museum projects, as Matthew wanted to know, but they are in Russian, so unfortunately. But we hope to add the English translation of audio description for the two major museums, the Russian Museum in St. Petersburg and the Tretyakov Gallery in Moscow. We are trying to promote audio description in nearby countries. As I told during our break, we trained some special Kazakhstan and Latvia and Serbia. So there are specialists in audio description in these countries as well. So we perform some training. By the way, sometimes we hold international courses on accessibility, and Joel Snyder was our guest. So if anyone wants to participate, so you're welcome to participate in such discussions. We will be glad to invite you, and sometimes they even pay for it. And I'm very glad to see all of you. And if you have some questions about the situation with AD in Russia, I will be glad to answer.
Thanks, Ivan. Much appreciated. What an international day we've had. A fantastic little tour around the world. I'm going to put the jet plane back in the garage now and leave that motif well alone for the rest of the session, I promise. So this second session, we're hoping to sort of look on where do we go from here and what's next. A much smaller panel than the first one, due to people's other arrangement and agreement commitments they got in the meantime. But we did want to hear from a few people. I said I was going to kick this session off, partly just to give a bit of a perspective from venues. And one of the things that I think is quite interesting and seems to have been the conversation going forward and seems to be playing out around the country is that smaller theatres may well be back in business before some of the bigger theatres. You know, as I was explaining to a colleague at the university last week who doesn't know very much about the business at all, I was sort of explaining, well, I can get a show on in my theatre with about 5 people in total working on it, whereas obviously to put, I don't know, Les Mis back into the West End, 200, 300 people are needed, so the scales may work in our favour. But we at the Arena have taken a look at the immediate future and made a decision that as we are not going to be programming between now and Christmas, although there may be a Christmas show that we sneak in there, we're going to use that money to invest in broadcast quality streaming equipment, which we'll be installing over the next 6 to 8 weeks. It's going to be multi-end point for cameras, so there'll be about 8 different camera positions within the auditorium, 3 cameras in stock, and then all the necessary routing and cabling and whatever to send it out to the internet. We're hoping to have that up and running this side of Christmas. The way we've looked at it is about making ourselves COVID proof for the foreseeable future, so that we can weather short-term cancellations, long-term cancellations, so that we can offer, you know, if Wolverhampton goes into a local lockdown at 3 p.m, we could still offer some kind of show at 7:30 that evening. And also for a small venue like ours, our turnover is about £600,000 a year, and our box office makes up about 10% of that, sometimes 15% of that. And if you put on our private hire as well, we're starting to get up to 25-30% of our annual turnover. It's protecting that income as well, hopefully minimising on refunds. And the really exciting thing for a venue of our size is that it offers us what I've been calling, and I'm not sure I haven't picked this up from somebody else, capacity plus auditoriums, so that we are in a world where if we sell out in the real world, whether that be at full capacity or our current 2-meter social distancing capacity of 16, then we can sell unlimited tickets beyond the doors to people watching on live stream, and that's a very exciting future. One of the things that those of you that know the arena will be unsurprised to learn is that we've put access at the heart of this project from day one of discussing what we're going to put in. So absolute minimums as we're putting the equipment in, with it, we had to be able to handle multiple audio feeds going in and out, and that we had to be able to offer captioning, and that we had to be able to offer picture-in-picture sign language as well. And all of those have been built into the project, so all of those will be available from day one. How often we'll use them, how regularly we'll be able to use them, we're not sure yet. But we know that the first, assuming everything goes in time, the first major show that goes out to it will be our Christmas show, and that will include all 3 services offered at point of broadcast. So, you know, we're really proud of that. The other thing which is interesting is that it hasn't cost us anywhere near as much as we thought it might. That's not to say it's cheap. It's going to cost us about £35,000 to put it in, but that's nowhere near what we originally thought it might cost. And the news that we're getting from the industry, the conversations we're having in the industry, is that what we're putting in is top notch, should last us easily 10 to 15 years, and is going to allow us to output a NT Live standard of broadcast from a 150 seat studio in Wolverhampton, and we think that's really significant. We've also looked at it as our potential to offer it as a service to the small and medium scale touring network in the UK. We're all seeing the conversations about, you know, how do you run a COVID secure musical on the West End? Well, yes, there are challenges. How do you run a COVID secure musical on tour? Well, yes, there are challenges, but I think when you get down to the small scale, and there don't tend to be understudies, there don't tend to be any more people on the road than you absolutely need, and you're often in a different city every single night, I think those are the tours that are going to be the most significantly affected by potential COVID infections until there is mass immunization and you know, and a level of immunity. So what we're offering is an ability to pre-record, to come in, hopefully do a live show with us, but take away a recording of the show, and we will be encouraging companies to put access onto those shows at the point of recording with us. So we're hoping that we can use the fact that we have the equipment to have those conversations with companies. And as many of you know, a lot of the companies we work with are already miles down the road in terms of access provision, but we're hoping that we can preserve it and also offer it at a significantly reduced cost. So a theatre company looking to get a high quality video capture of a show, you're probably looking at an absolute minimum of £5,000 to do that, and certainly well upwards of that for anything very complicated at all. So we're hoping we can offer it, you know, by tapping it in with a show, or pairing it up with us taking percentage of future streaming income, that we can offer it at a significantly reduced cost below that, and hopefully, you know, enable some of the work to continue in the region, so and beyond, hopefully. So that's our plan for the future. And I suppose also worth saying, we embarked on this from a gifted position, which has a venue within a higher education organisation. We're part of the University of Wolverhampton. We are fairly confident of our future. And I know that's not the case for the vast majority of venues and theatre companies at the moment. So we very much took a view of the fact that as we were in that position, we should use it as an opportunity to lead rather than follow for a period of time. So so that's where that came from. So it's just to put that on people's radar. Obviously, what I think that's going to do is pose, and Ros was talking about this earlier, some interesting questions about audio description delivery and live versus pre-record. And you know, it is likely that we are going to have events at the arena which are live but are at the same time being recorded for transmission at a later date, and it's going to mean that we have those questions sort of up front and centre for us. I suppose the other bit of that conundrum is that we don't really know what's possible with it yet. We don't know what all the uses of this technology are going to be. We have a fairly fixed idea of the main thing we want to offer, but we know that the companies we work with, our own internal development program, artists that we work with, are really going to want to explore the creative and innovative uses of the equipment beyond just let's put it out essentially on YouTube, which is the basic usage. They're going to be looking at multimedia application and other uses, and hopefully we can continue our work in encouraging access to be at the heart of those conversations. So that's the update from Team Arena and what we're planning in Wolverhampton. And if anybody wants to be part of the project or wants to be involved or wants to you know, come and have a play at any point, just let me know, because as I say, we're kind of relying on people from all around the sector to come in. And what we always say at the arena is let's push it until it breaks, and then we know how far we can go. We always just want to come in just that little bit inside of where it breaks. So we're kind of looking for people to come and push the kit and try things that they might think are not quite possible, and we'll find out if they are or not. So that's my bit of the update for this part. The other person that we wanted to get an update from was Matthew. I think most of you in the room know Matthew and know the work of Vocalize, but obviously Vocalize is one of the major providers of audio description in the UK, and it'd be interesting, Matthew, to have a brief update on where you find yourselves, but also what you're sort of what the next 6 to 12 months looks like from a Vocalize point of view.
Thanks, Neil. That sounds really interesting. What's happening at Arena, and I was kind of thinking about that conundrum, which I'm sure that's what Ros was and you were talking about earlier in terms of if you're live streaming a production, the audio describer obviously needs to know what the camera is showing rather than just what's happening on stage, or which camera view is being shown. So obviously that's quite a tricky one to get if you're doing the audio description live at the same time. So right, Vocalize. I hadn't actually prepared an update of what we were up to. I prepared some bullets on the future of AD, but I will try and wing a kind of quick update. As most of the Vocalize team since lockdown have been on furlough, except for myself. But we've currently, Anna, the museum program manager, is back from furlough half time, and there was a month in August/September when Michael, the theatre program manager, was off furlough, and kind of getting in touch with theatres and seeing what was happening. And that's what Anna is doing now in terms of museums. We, by comparison, do seem to be more museums open and back functioning. Obviously, it's quite a different nature. I mean, a lot of them are quite cut down and they have fixed routes. So, like for example, the British Museum has a very fixed and limited route. And many of the large museums are kind of in London and other big cities without tourism. There's the demand, the numbers are down anyway, so in our tourists. So with a limited rent and limited numbers probably coming. However, they are starting to explore Zoom as a way of doing audio description tours, so that the British Museum's doing one for the Tantra exhibition. Some smaller places, like the Photographers Gallery has been doing Zoom tours, for months and months now. The Tate, I've been in touch with the Tate, trying to encourage them to do them. We've got a few projects that have come out of funding applications that museums have done for kind of emergency funding, and like yourselves, like the Arena, like the Arena, this has turned into them thinking about online access, and rather than doing infrastructure, they've producing content. And so, for example, we're working on an online AD tour for the Dickens Museum at the moment, but there were more applications that we put into that didn't kind of get funding, but some of them have. I suppose the other thing with museums is how they can support general visitors to museums after reopening, and in relation to the many changes that are going on with fixed routes, social distancing. So that's something that we've been doing both for theatre and museums, which is doing surveys of audio description users / theatre goers, museum goers. We've done a museum one and published the results of that, and we've currently got one live with Ada for the theatre goers, and we're desperately trying to increase the take up of that survey. Luckily, I just had 10 extra submissions in today via large print, which is excellent, which really helps. And interestingly, so it's a slight diversion, but you do tend to get a bit of, I'm not sure what the word, it might be confirmation bias, but the trouble is if you do a survey and publish, and the survey is about online and Zoom and stuff, and you do that survey on Twitter and Facebook, you're going to get people responding to it, are very comfortable using, are more comfortable using Zoom and other digital platforms. But what was really interesting getting these 10 large print feedback forms was that it was done by a local sight loss group who brought this to some of their members and users, and they were filling, and many of the people who filled this in were filling it and said, well, no, I don't have access to the internet, this isn't. So they were answering questions about what they would want from a Zoom call, doing a Zoom theatre description, having never experienced one. And I think that was that's going to be very interesting coming out in the survey, because we've got to be really aware in the future that while there are huge opportunities and possibilities for online broadening our audiences and everything, and increasing choice and all those, there is that risk that there are still going to be a number of people who don't have access and won't be included. And that the live experience, the live social experience of going to the theatres still really important. So that was a really good reminder before I joined a Zoom call that not everyone does Zoom calls. Do you want me to carry on going through, Neil, do you want me to carry on going through what I think's going to happen in the future, or do you want me to pause there?
Yeah, no, crack on, Matthew. Yeah, crack on to the feature.
Okay, so I think we're thinking about this. It's a kind of mixture of what I think will happen and what I want to happen, and so I won't say which is which in a way. But obviously, online's going to be important, and you know, I think, and the other thing is I'm kind of talking about this through the lens of Vocalise. I mean, Vocalise traditionally works with larger theatres, so I'm looking at a time where, as you say, we need to be better at working with smaller venues. We're probably going to need to get more portable radio equipment to work with theatres that have not done audio description before, or they want to borrow that equipment. It's also true for there's going to be more outdoors productions when the weather allows. So again, radio equipment is going to be useful. We're almost certainly going to have to rename and redesign touch tours. That's one thing coming through very strongly in the survey results, is that there's a lot of concern about those, and that concern will come from audio description users and theatres as well, concerned about you know, safeguarding and health and safety of their visitors, and I think it would be useful for us as a, you know, as a sector, the AD, to be on the front foot on that, so that we're presenting results, but we're presenting options to theatres of how we can do them safely. I think we're going to see, and this is partly the things that I want rather than think will happen, but hopefully we can do both, which is the increased awareness and involvement among actors and creatives. And this was something that was a big part of the Describing Diversity report. We need them more involved to make a better audio description, and to properly represent the actors and casts who are on stage. And I think that I want to see us using more the questionnaire for actors about their character throughout. I think the other reason why we'll see more involvement among in audio description among theatres is because they will want to see what's happening with their money. They will, you know, their budgets will be tighter, and so if they're spending money on an audio description, they will want to see where it's going, and so we've got to think of that as a good thing. I think also that it will be more because of the hopefully also a push by funders, if we can keep up the pressure on the Arts Council to ensure that when they're funding people that they provide access, that it's that there will be more attempts at integrated AD, integrated creative AD, what you want to call it, and that may be both with and without input from experienced trained describers. So it's a kind of it's a good thing, but some of the results, you know, may be mixed, and so we've as audio describers and organisations, we've got to see how we can support those and not you know, and nurture it and make it as good as possible. The other thing I was going to say about seeing that, I think theatre AD is going to be more influential in the world of audio description, in the sense that we're going to be bringing the audio introduction to the online world, so that whenever we're starting to do some film AD of productions of video, sorry, but not all theatre productions, some theatre, but some arts/museum projects, and we're introducing the audio introduction to those as well, and so I think there's interest in film and TV companies about this as a concept as well. So I think that theatre AD is going to be more influential. Those were my. Oh yeah, the one other thing I kind of wanted to say, and I think I started saying something about it earlier, which was about that thing about for some people there's no substitute fresh, you know, there is no exact substitute for the experience of going to the theatre, being there, meeting other people, having face-to-face experience. And our job with the online area, you know, with online AD is to try and not replicate that, but at least have some sort of community around that. And I think something that we'll look to do when in due course is to, you know, there's some great things going on out there with watch parties, you know, online tours that have social elements to it. And I think that's something that that we really need to do and will do. So those are the kind of things I thought of.
Thank you, Matthew. Much appreciated. And yeah, I think we've touched on a few of those already. I think there's some new thoughts in there as well, which is really valuable. And it's always great to hear you know, what the picture is, particularly with you've got such a spread of art forms coming through Vocalize. That's really good to hear, and really great to hear about the audio introduction starting to drift into other media as well, because I think that's really valuable, and it's something I know we've talked about before, and how we do that, and particularly when we keep extending what it means to, you know, watch a piece of theatre with this online world, you know, keeping those things alive. I think it's going to be really important. Great. Sonali, I think you're here. Are you, sorry to keep you waiting in the waiting room earlier. I was off running lunch errands. Are you here?
I am
there we
here.
are. You are.
Hello.
Great. How are you?
I'm very well. How's
Good.
everyone?
Yeah,
Hello.
good.
Oh, sorry for my hairdo. Not had a haircut for 6 months, so this is what you look like after 6 months of no haircut.
There's a
But,
reason I'm wearing a hat. This is, you know.
yeah,
this,
see, I missed the trick. That's what I should have probably done.
I apologize for my hairdo as well.
Joel, of course. Yeah, apologies accepted.
Thank you.
What else can I say? Oh, good to see everyone. Oh, and thanks very much for inviting me, Neil. I think it's been a really interesting session. I think from our perspective, so from the end user perspective, really, I think it's been a really, really interesting year. Clearly, the lockdown has affected almost everything, most of all how we spend our time. So in the context of my work, I think we've seen the sharpest increase ever in the feedback we receive on media accessibility. So part of it is about audio description, but then we're hearing a lot more about the user experience side of things. So the user experience of the apps on different platforms, viewer preferences, how they want things done, the describers they want to hear from. So they've got very strong preferences about voices on certain channels. Okay, this is the voice that I want to hear more. And one of the most positive aspects of the lockdown has been the industry is responding so rapidly to the feedback. Now, I can only speak about the industry that we generally interact with. So I'm talking about the broadcast, film, and ward. It is no longer uncommon for issues to be fixed within hours of being reported, which is unprecedented. So an AD truck that's gone missing from a series on, let's say, for example, the iPlayer, as soon as we report it, we do get the feedback. And often you see by evening, by end of the day, it's fixed. So buttons that are not labeled after a software update, again, that's fixed quite soon. So all these are very positive changes. Of course, not all complaints are resolved in time. Some are not resolved at all. But the level of interest from both the end users and the industry is very high at the moment in media accessibility. And we are really hoping to maintain this momentum. I think from the responses we get, my sense is that the industry does want to do the right thing. It is a matter of resources, it's a matter of planning and workflows. They understand that people with sight loss are isolating, just as sighted people. And entertainment is just a distraction that most people need. And as always at RNIB, we see ourselves as conduits, between the industry and the end users. The scale at which we receive feedback on a number of things, including media accessibility, it just tends to give us that insight into the sort of experiences that people like and what are the barriers. Another very interesting change that I've noticed since the lockdown, because the number of complaints have gone up and the number of emails have just gone up, is the type of queries coming through from the industry. So I'm talking about the AD providers specifically here. I think we are seeing, at least I'm seeing, an emergence of specialisms and new specialisms. So when I joined RNIB, this was about 10 years ago, there were three sectors. So you had the film, you had the broadcast, and then you had the arts and culture and theatre, which was in the UK is primarily linked to ADA. Now, in addition to this, now we've got describers that specialize only in TV ads or social communication. Then you've got people who focus only on corporate films and online campaigns. And then you've got this brilliant group that works on gaming and just does gaming, that's it. I think this is happening because more people are aware of user needs. There is an appreciation, but also there are legal requirements. I mean, for the gaming, Joel, I'll have to say it's the US that's driving the change. It's the CVAA. I mean, it kicked in 2019, December. And since then, we've seen two massive games that are completely accessible. And I've never seen people being reduced to tears on social media when they're playing something live on a channel like Twitch. And I'm blind, but I can play this with my sighted friends. And they are very, very competitive games, which are completely accessible. Never happened before. So I think we are in very, very interesting times, but very positive on the future. On the legal requirements, I think of course, we work with Ofcom, we work with DCMS. We've just submitted our response to the latest consultation from Ofcom on the code that they're writing for video on demand. It focuses, again, primarily on broadcast and board. I think there might be some arts and culture and theatre platforms that might qualify. But again, there are a lot of caveats within it, which might mean that they can get away without providing any description at all or without meeting any requirements at all. But as long as they're licensed in the UK by Ofcom, for which they have to meet certain criteria, I think they may have certain requirements, not obviously, not this year, not in the coming year, but soon. I think my 5 minutes are up, Neil. So I'll stop there, but I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Sonali. And yeah, really important to get that voice from the end users, and great to hear about that sort of really dramatic spike in uptake, use, and the interactive nature, which is probably the positive way of saying complaints. But it's always I always take that as a good sign if you're getting that engagement. So that's really fantastic to hear about. Yeah, it seems to be an appropriate time actually to throw this open to the floor and see if there are any questions for Sonali, Matthew, anybody else, just general thoughts, ponderings, sharings, as we are starting to head towards the end of the time we'd allocated today. So I'll take it through whichever method people feel is best. You can do a digital hand raise, a physical hand raise, yell at me at high volume. I mean, any of those will go. Anne, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to all three of you. It's great to hear that from Sonali. I didn't know there were describers who specialised in gaming. Somebody did ask me about that the other day, and I said, well, I've never done it, but I'm keen to learn. If there are people out there doing it already, they probably do it much better. So it's really good to hear. It's really good to hear that more people are accessing things that are being broadcast. It's great to hear about all the developments at Vocalize, and it's fantastic to hear that the arena is looking into this high quality camera that is then going to be made available to other small companies. I think that could be a real game changer for the small companies. And we keep mentioning it today, but I think it's really, really crucial that as a body, we do everything we can to encourage theatres and other arts providers to, when they get the work on stage, to film it, make it available, have an online version with audio description. They'll make the work. It's not going to cost them too much more, especially if they borrow the camera from the Arena Theatre to film it, and then get the access put onto it. And I really hope that that's just something that starts to happen automatically as a result of lockdown, because then it's available to anyone, anywhere in the world. And if you have mobility impairments, or you have any reason whatsoever why you can't go to see that show or attend an event at a theatre or a gallery or wherever, then it means you can do it online. So I think it's a real possibility for the future, and hopefully a real opening up, as we've sort of mentioned in passing, but I just wanted to make that point.
Thanks, Anne. Yeah, and it's always good to hear that. And obviously we took a bit of a punt on it, and we've been slowly announcing it to different groups of people, and getting a positive response about it. But I think what you've outlined there is absolutely right. You know, there's an opportunity here, I think, to make access part of the fabric for a lot of companies that haven't considered it before. In some ways, it is easier to offer in an online world than it is in a live world, and we should take advantage of that. One of the advantages we have at the small scale, again, another reason that we're heading down this route, is that it tends to be the case that the people that bring the work to us at the Arena own the work outright, so we're not having to worry about licensing, and that obviously is one of the biggest challenges. You know, when we're looking at putting work online, we know that licensing and copyright and permissions and royalties, etc., are all you know, potential obstacles to these things. But as you say, hopefully as things go forward, this becomes more of normality, and it's what we're doing. You know, we've again, I can only talk for the Arena, not multiple venues, but we've completely rewritten our contract during lockdown for coming to the theatre, to make the online streaming part of the conversation at contract stage. It's not an obligation of a company, but it's in the contract, and it has to be removed rather than added in. And similarly with provision of access, and it's those smaller changes, I think, that are going to lead to big moves as we go forward. Trish, your hand is up.
Hi everybody, my name's Trish. I've got long dark hair, white woman in my late 40s, and I just wanted to sort of bring together something that Matthew said earlier, and what we're now talking about, obviously, with the online and the digital, and also what Sonali was just saying, obviously from the RNIB feedback as well. Matthew, when you mentioned about digital exclusion and the sort of, I was really interested in that sort of large print survey results that you've had through. So I just wondered, this is just a question based on ignorance, in the RNIB or in the sight loss councils around the country, are there sort of outreach facilities for blind and partially sighted people in the community that don't have access to the internet and digital platforms, or maybe they do have the internet but they don't have yet the confidence or the knowledge to sort of know how to use it, kind of thing? So is that something, because it would be awful to lose people when all of this is becoming more available, but to lose them through sort of digital exclusion that instead.
I think Sonali's best place to answer that, but I think the answer is yes. I think the RNIB and other sight loss organisations do, but Sonali.
Yes, I think on a national level, RNIB does have a lot of local telephone befriending services. So you've got, for example, we've got book clubs, we've got film clubs, we've got different hobby clubs, and these take place obviously over the telephone, and it's targeted at people who can't be online. For people who can be online, you've got the Connect community, you've got Connect Voices. But for other people now, pre-COVID days, we used to have physical meetups. So there was for example, I remember we always used to run into this brilliant guitar group that used to come in on Wednesday afternoons. Yeah, it was a nice loud afternoon that we had in the office. But we do have physical meetups, but I think it's a local organization. So if you look at, for example, in London, you've got London Vision, which is brilliant at bringing people together. And they are far better than RNIB. And we say that because I think the sort of relationships that they have with local communities, and it's not just end users, but it's also communities. So they've got relationships with, let's say, the local society in Camden, or the local society in Barnet. So they do reach out, very grassroots level organizations. We tend to work together quite often. So for example, there's a Christmas campaign on audio description that's coming up. So for that, we have reached out to London Vision and lots of other local societies, because we do need people who are not connected to be informed. This is happening and you can take part. This is how you take part. So I completely agree with you. We can't lose that, that community, because that's a massive community at the moment. It's a very big group. And if there's anything that RNIB can do to help, maybe start a new telephone group, maybe on theatres, arts, culture, let me know. I can float the idea internally and see if there's interest. And it also depends on if people are interested.
Mm. Yeah, I was sort of thinking, like with Neil's, great sort of plan coming up, which sounds amazing, sort of maybe at those early stages, getting that collaboration in place for the audience members you've already got that are used to coming to you physically, but perhaps are less confident digitally. Then it's sort of just, I don't know, I guess it's just including it right from the get-go, isn't it? With any, I was talking to some old friends of mine in Bristol, and they, it's amazing the assumptions you make, that people just are, oh yeah, I know how to use Zoom, or I know how to use all of that, because it's just become obviously what we've been doing over the last 6 months. But actually, these particular friends who are blind, neither of them have sort of access to that, and hadn't, we would communicate on email. So I'd sort of squared the circle and thought, oh well, email therefore Zoom, but actually that wasn't necessarily the case for them. So yeah, it's just sort of being aware of it at this really early stage, isn't it, about just sort of not leaving anyone behind, I guess, in this new journey. Thank you, Sonali, that was really helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Sonali.
Sorry, Neil, I was just going to say Henshaw's Society that operates across the Northwest, and Galloway's, who are based in Preston, they have courses where they teach people about technology. I don't know how many of those classes can now take place, of course, but they have certainly managed to train over the telephone a blind audio description user to enable her to use Zoom. So, but yeah, I don't know how widespread it is, but it's brilliant if it is out there. Because otherwise people are excluded, like we're saying.
Roz.
Thank you. I don't want to completely run away with this, because this is a good fix and it's a great thing that needs to get on. But what I'm hearing from people is, I want to get back into the theatre. I spend all my time at home. I spend all my time, within four walls. This is such an important part of my life, to get out, to meet the people that I know, to meet the people in the venue that I know. And I think we also, in parallel with what we're doing, and I know I said at the beginning that I think the online is important to keep going, but I think we really need to work to help the theatres to bring people back into the live realm. We need to make sure that people are feeling safe, and that the extra elements of health and safety, if you like, are taken care of. That people are trained within the theatres to make sure that they are guiding appropriately. If you cannot guide physically, then you can guide vocally, and we need to put in training for that kind of thing. So I think there are lots of things that we need to do to make sure that people's lives are fulfilled in the way that they want, not in just the way that's convenient.
Here, Ros. Yeah, absolutely. Interestingly, the Indigo did an audience survey not so long ago, and they did it nationally, but also we were able to break it down by which box office the initial email had been sent out from, and certainly for the Arena's audience profile, which was a decent sample size, there was more confidence in returning to the building from our VI customers than there was from our general audience. They were showing higher confidence in returning to the building, and we rang a couple of them off the back of that, and what was being said was, you already look after us really well when we come to the venue, so we know that you will have taken that approach that you already take to looking after us to the COVID thing as well. So we don't have to wonder about whether you're just saying it or you are really doing it, because we know you really do it. Again, that's anecdotal, it's just about the Arena, but I think we have venues that have a history of doing access, have really strong relationships with our audiences, and with the people in those audiences, and I think we can build on that going forward. And they, as we know, that they can be incredibly loyal to specific venues. So yeah, absolutely, I'd back that 100% as a opinion going forward. Great. Anyone else want to contribute at this stage? I'm going to give you a couple of seconds. Well, I feel this is a good kind of point to put a pin in the day and sum things up. It's been a fantastic discussion, I think, and I think we've talked about some really important areas, and it's just been lovely to spend some time with like-minded professionals for a few hours and share some things. I'd like to thank you all for your attendance and for your contributions. Thank you all for your time. A huge thank you to the executive team and everyone who's worked behind the scenes to make today happen, including our corporate sponsors at Zoom. And I think, you know, just some things that we know we've got a challenging year ahead of us. I would hope that the worst is behind us, and it certainly feels that things are starting to turn in that direction, and there are new opportunities out there. To remind you all that ADA is here to support, help, advise, advocate, lobby, buy you a coffee. I don't know what we're here for, but if you need us, we're here, and it's really important we keep the conversations going. I think we've agreed that we're going to keep the regular monthly Zoom meetings going, because everyone seems to be enjoying those and benefiting from those, so we'll keep those popping up through the next few months, yeah, hopefully in 12 months time we can meet in a real room somewhere in the real world, and we'll certainly, one of the advantages I think today particularly is that our international colleagues have been able to take such a full role in the session, and we'd like to try and maintain that however we do that next year. Maybe we can really exploit the Arena's new infrastructure next year and find a way of making that work. But of course, you're always welcome to jump on the plane and come over and come and see us. But yeah, we'll hopefully next year we'll all be in a room together. So thank you so much for your time and for your support. and I will give you the gift of time for the rest of your afternoon. Executive team, shall we stay on and crack on?
Yes.
Yeah, lovely.
Thank you, Neil. Big thank
Great.
you.
Well, thank you, everyone else.
So much. Thank you.
And, good luck, everyone.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.